They say when an alpha catches you in the mating hunt, your fate is sealed. I believed that, until the night I ran into Aldenmore Forest with nothing but a knife and a prayer. The village alphas were behind me, their howls splitting the darkness. But it wasn't them I should have feared. Standing ahead in the moonlit clearing was him, Alpha King Roman, the one man in the kingdom who supposedly never participated in these barbaric traditions. His eyes glowed amber in the shadows, and his voice was deadly calm. "Hello, Rosalie. I've been waiting for you." That's when I knew. This wasn't just a hunt anymore. This was destiny hunting me down. If you want to see how Rosalie survives the impossible and turns the most powerful alpha in the realm into her greatest ally, stay until the end. And don't forget to hit that like button and comment which city you're watching from. The bell tower struck midnight, and Rosalie's heart hammered against her ribs like a caged animal, desperate for freedom. She stood at the edge of Thornwick Village, staring into the black mouth of Aldenmore Forest. Behind her, torches blazed in the town square where the other women waited, trembling, weeping, some already resigned to their fates. The annual mating hunt was about to begin, and everyone knew the truth they refused to speak aloud. This wasn't a tradition. It was a culling. "Rosalie Hart," Elder Morvain's voice cracked through the cold air like a whip. "You will run with the others, or you will be deemed unclaimed and exiled. Those are your only choices." Rosalie didn't turn around. She'd heard these threats her entire life, 23 years of being the village outcast, the orphan with no family, no pack, no protection. The girl whose parents died in the Great Raid, leaving her with nothing but scars and a stubborn refusal to bow. "I'll run," she said quietly, "but not for the reasons you think." Morvain's laugh was bitter. "You think you're different, special. Every woman who runs believes she'll escape. By dawn, you'll be claimed by whichever alpha catches you first. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked." Rosalie finally looked back, her green eyes fierce in the torchlight. "Then I'll be the first to change how it works." The old woman's face twisted with contempt. "Foolish child, you have no wolf, no shift. You're barely more than human. You should be grateful any alpha would want you." The words stung because they were partially true. Rosalie had never shifted, never felt the wolf rise within her like the others did. She was incomplete, broken somehow. The village had made sure she never forgot it, but what they didn't know, what she'd kept hidden for years, was that she'd been preparing for this night since she was 16. While the other girls learned to submit to make themselves appealing to potential mates, Rosalie had been learning to survive. She'd studied the forest, memorized every game trail and water source. She'd trained with her father's old hunting knife until her hands bled. She'd stolen ashroot oil from the healer's supplies, the one substance that could mask a scent from even the most powerful alpha nose. She wasn't running to be caught. She was running to disappear. "The hunt begins in 5 minutes, Morvain announced to the gathered crowd. "Women, take your positions at the forest edge. Alphas, you know the rules, midnight to dawn. Whatever you catch, you keep." Rosalie moved to join the other women, but one of them, Lydia, the baker's daughter, stepped deliberately in front of her. "Don't even think about running near me," Lydia hissed. "Bad enough we have to do this without you bringing your cursed luck into it." "I wasn't planning to run anywhere near you, Lydia." "Good. Because if you somehow ruin this for me, if Marcus doesn't catch me because he's distracted by you, I'll make sure everyone knows it was your fault." Rosalie almost laughed. Lydia had been planning her capture for months, making eyes at Marcus Thorne, one of the younger alphas. She'd probably left a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to her favorite picnic spot. This whole thing was a sick performance where the women pretended to run and the alphas pretended to hunt. But not everyone was pretending. Rosalie had heard the stories. Girls who ran too far, too fast. Girls who genuinely tried to escape and were caught by the wrong alphas. The brutal ones, the sadistic ones, the ones who saw the hunt as permission to unleash their darkest instincts. She'd also heard what happened to women who weren't caught at all. Exile. Shunning. Sometimes worse. The system was designed so there was no way to win. You either submitted or you suffered. Rosalie had chosen a third option. She would vanish so completely that by the time they realized she wasn't coming back, it would be too late to stop her. The horn blew, a long, mournful sound that echoed across the valley. "Run!" The women scattered into the forest like startled deer. Most stayed close to the village. their escape routes carefully calculated to intersect with their chosen mates. A few brave souls ventured deeper, gambling that they could make it far enough to choose their own captors. Rosalie ran like her life depended on it, because it did. She sprinted past the first line of trees, her legs pumping, her lungs burning. She'd worn her oldest clothes, dark and nondescript, nothing that would catch on branches or glow in the moonlight. Her father's knife was strapped to her thigh, the ashroot oil tucked in her jacket pocket, and a piece of hard bread was her only provision. She had one chance to get this right. The forest swallowed her whole. Behind her, she heard the second horn, the signal for the alphas to begin their hunt. The sound that followed made her blood run cold. Howls. Dozens of them, rising in a chorus of predatory excitement. But Rosalie didn't look back. She'd mapped this route 100 times in her mind. East through the birch grove, north along the river bend, then west toward the mountains where the forest grew so thick that even shifters struggled to navigate. Her plan was simple. Get far enough away that no one would bother following. Wait out the night in a cave she'd discovered last summer. In the morning, when the hunt ended and the newly mated pairs returned to the village, she'd slip away for good. Head south to the free cities where women didn't have to run from men who claimed ownership over their bodies and futures. She'd been saving for 3 years. She had enough coin to start over, enough skills to survive. All she had to do was make it through one night. The first 20 minutes went according to plan. She crossed the river at the shallow point, careful not to leave tracks. She applied the ashroot oil to her skin and clothes, grimacing at the bitter smell. It would hide her scent for a few hours, long enough. But as she climbed the ridge toward the western mountains, something changed. The sounds of the hunt faded behind her, too quickly, too completely. The forest grew unnaturally quiet. Even the nightbirds had stopped singing. Rosalie slowed, her instincts screaming danger. She wasn't alone. The realization hit her like ice water. Someone was ahead of her, not behind, someone who'd been waiting. She dropped into a crouch, hand moving to her knife. Her eyes scanned the darkness, searching for movement, for the telltale gleam of shifter eyes. Nothing. But she could feel it. A presence. Powerful. Patient. "You can come out," she called, proud that her voice didn't shake. "I know you're there." For a long moment, silence. Then, from the shadows ahead, a figure emerged. He was tall, taller than any man she'd seen in Thornwick. His clothes were dark and travel-worn but expensive. Nobility. His face was partially obscured by the hood of his cloak, but she could see his jaw, strong and severe, and his eyes, amber, bright as coins, glowing with an inner fire that no ordinary shifter possessed. Alpha eyes. But not just any alpha. "Hello, Rosalie," he said, his voice deep and resonant, carrying a quiet authority that made her wolfless heart skip. "I've been waiting for you." She kept her hand on the knife. "I don't know you." "Yes, you do." He pushed back his hood, and moonlight revealed his face fully. Rosalie's breath caught. She did know him, not personally, but everyone in the Northern Territories knew Alpha King Roman Ashcroft. He ruled the kingdom's western provinces from Iron Peak Castle, a fortress carved into the mountains 100 miles from her village. He was legend more than man, the Alpha who'd unified the warring packs, who'd stopped the border raids, who supposedly could shift into a wolf the size of a horse. He was also the one Alpha who'd never participated in the mating hunts. He'd publicly condemned them, called them barbaric, outdated. His own territory had banned the practice 15 years ago. So what in hell was he doing in her forest, on her night, looking at her like he'd found exactly what he'd been searching for? "You're Roman Ashcroft," she managed. "I am. The mating hunt is a Thornwick tradition. Your territory is 100 miles west. You have no authority here, no reason to— I have every reason to be here." He took a step closer, and Rosalie instinctively backed up. "Because someone sent me a letter 3 days ago. Anonymous. It told me that on this night, at this hour, a woman named Rosalie Hart would run into Aldenmore Forest. It told me that she was important, that she was in danger." His eyes locked onto hers. "That she was mine." The word sent a shiver down her spine. Not fear, something else. Something she didn't have time to analyze. "I don't belong to anyone," she said flatly. "And I don't know who sent you that letter, but they lied. I'm nobody. Nothing. Just another village girl trying to survive a barbaric tradition. You're lying. He said it with such certainty that it startled her. I can hear your heartbeat. It jumps every time you say you're nothing. That's not the truth. That's what they told you. Damn him. Damn his alpha senses. It doesn't matter what I am, she shot back. I'm leaving. Tonight. I'm not going to be claimed by some Thornwick alpha who sees me as a prize, and I'm certainly not going to be claimed by a king who showed up because of an anonymous letter. So if you'll excuse me, she tried to move past him, but he shifted, faster than she could track, and suddenly he was in front of her again. You don't understand, he said, and for the first time she heard something in his voice besides authority, urgency. The letter didn't just tell me about you, it warned me. It said that if I didn't come tonight, if I didn't find you first, you'd be dead by morning. Her blood went cold. What? Someone in your village wants you eliminated, Rosalie. The hunt isn't just about claiming a mate. For you, it's an execution dressed up as tradition. That's insane. I'm nobody. Why would anyone? I don't know yet, but I've learned to trust my instincts, and right now they're telling me that letter was credible. He studied her face, his expression grave. You feel it too, don't you? That wrongness in the air. The hunt is too quiet. The other alphas haven't followed you this far, but not because you covered your trail well, because they were told not to. She wanted to argue, but he was right. She'd expected pursuit by now. The fact that she'd made it this far unmolested was suspicious. So what do you want from me? She demanded. If you're here to rescue me, fine. Point me toward the southern road and I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. I can't do that. Why not? He hesitated, and in that moment Rosalie saw something flicker across his face. Conflict, confusion, want. Because, he said quietly, the moment I saw you, my wolf recognized you. And I don't understand it. I don't know how it's possible, but the sound of branches breaking cut him off. They both spun toward the noise. From the darkness, 3 figures emerged. Alphas, but not from Thornwick. Their clothes were different, their scents foreign. Mercenaries, Rosalie realized with growing horror. Hired killers, and they were looking straight at her. Well, the largest one said, his smile vicious. Looks like the information was good. There she is. His eyes slid to Roman. And you must be the complication we were warned about. Roman moved in front of Rosalie, his body language shifting from conversational to lethal in an instant. This woman is under my protection. Leave now and I'll let you live. The mercenary laughed. Big words, Your Majesty, but you're 1 alpha against 3, and our employer pays very well for completed contracts. Last warning, Roman said, his voice dropping to a growl that vibrated with power. The mercenaries attacked. What happened next would be seared into Rosalie's memory forever. Roman moved like violence given form. He didn't fully shift, didn't need to. His speed, his strength, his precision, it was beyond anything she'd ever witnessed. The first mercenary went down with a broken neck before he'd taken 2 steps. The second managed to partially shift before Roman grabbed him by the throat and slammed him into a tree with enough force to crack the trunk. The third, seeing his companions fall, turned to run. Roman caught him. Who hired you? He demanded, his hand locked around the man's windpipe. The mercenary gagged, unable to speak. Roman loosened his grip slightly. Talk. Don't know name, the man choked out. Letter. Payment in advance. Kill the girl. Make it look like hunt accident. Who sent the letter? Sealed, wax seal, castle mark. Roman's expression darkened. What castle? Yours, Iron Peak. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Someone in Roman's own castle had sent mercenaries to kill Rosalie. Someone with access to his seal, his authority. Roman's hand tightened reflexively, and the mercenary went limp. For a moment, the forest was silent, except for Rosalie's ragged breathing. Then Roman turned to her, and his eyes, those burning amber eyes, were filled with a mix of rage and something else. Protectiveness. Possessiveness. We need to move, he said. Now. If they sent 3, they'll send more. I don't understand any of this, Rosalie said, her voice shaking despite her efforts to stay calm. Why would someone from your castle want me dead? I've never even been to Iron Peak. I've never done anything to... I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. He moved toward her, and she instinctively stepped back. He stopped, raising his hand slightly. I'm not going to hurt you, Rosalie, but I'm going to keep you alive, which means you're coming with me to Iron Peak. Absolutely not. I don't know you. I don't trust you. For all I know, this is some elaborate trick to... If I wanted to claim you by force, you'd already be claimed, he said bluntly. I'm the Alpha King. I don't need tricks or games, but someone is trying to kill you, and the only way to figure out who and why is to bring you somewhere safe. Iron Peak is the most fortified castle in the kingdom. You'll be protected there while I investigate. Or I'll be trapped there while you figure out how to use me for whatever this is really about. His jaw tightened. You don't have a choice. In about 10 minutes, when these bodies are discovered, more mercenaries will come. Then the Thornwick Alphas will realize something's wrong. Then things will get very complicated very quickly. So you can either trust me, the Alpha who just saved your life, or you can try to run and see how far you get before someone puts a knife in your back. She hated that he was right. She hated that her instincts, the same instincts that had kept her alive this long, were telling her he was being honest. Most of all, she hated the way her body responded to his presence, the way something deep inside her, something that had always been silent, was suddenly screaming at her to move closer, not farther away. Fine, she said. I'll go with you. But the moment I sense you're lying to me, the moment this becomes a trap, I'll find a way out. I've survived this long on my own. I can do it again. Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe. Fair enough. He removed his cloak and wrapped it around her shoulders. It was warm, smelling of pine and smoke and something wild. Stay close to me. We have a long way to go before dawn. As they moved through the forest, Rosalie's mind raced. 12 hours ago, her biggest problem was escaping the mating hunt. Now she was traveling with an Alpha King who claimed she was in mortal danger, running from mercenaries hired by someone in his own castle, and trying to ignore the inexplicable pull she felt toward a man she'd just met. She glanced at Roman's profile, strong and resolute in the moonlight. "Why did your wolf recognize me?" she asked quietly. "What did you mean by that?" He was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, "I meant that when I saw you, everything I thought I knew about myself changed. I've been alive for 32 years. I've met thousands of women. I've never wanted any of them." He looked at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her heart stutter. "Until you." The word hung between them, heavy with implications she wasn't ready to examine. "That's not possible," she said. "I'm wolfless, broken. I can't be—" "You're not broken," he interrupted, his voice fierce. "Don't let them make you believe that. You don't know anything about me. Then tell me. We have all night." And despite everything, despite the danger, despite her fear, despite the walls she'd built around herself for 23 years, Rosalie found herself wanting to. They walked deeper into the forest, leaving the dead mercenaries and the mating hunt behind. Behind them, in the village, the hunt was ending. Couples were emerging from the woods, the women caught, the men triumphant. Elder Morvain would be tallying the results, preparing the bonding ceremonies. But one woman wouldn't return. And by morning, when they realized Rosalie Hart had vanished with the Alpha King himself, everything would change. The real hunt was only beginning. They traveled through the night in tense silence, broken only by the sound of their footsteps and the distant calls of night hunters. Roman moved with the confidence of someone who knew these woods intimately, leading Rosalie along paths she'd never discovered despite years of exploration. Every few minutes he'd pause, his head tilting as he listened to sounds she couldn't hear, scenting for dangers she couldn't detect. She hated relying on him, hated that her carefully laid plans had disintegrated the moment he'd stepped out of those shadows. "We need to rest," Roman said finally, as the first hints of dawn began to gray the eastern sky. "There's a way station ahead. It's secure." "A way station?" Rosalie's exhaustion made her voice sharper than intended. "How convenient. Do you have safe houses scattered throughout forests you supposedly never visit?" He glanced back at her, and even in the dim light she could see the flicker of amusement in his expression. "I never said I don't visit. I said I don't participate in mating hunts. There's a difference." He gestured ahead. "The way station is part of an old patrol route from when the territories were less stable. My guards use it when they're tracking smugglers or raiders." "So your men might be there?" "No, I ordered the southern patrols pulled back 3 days ago." At her sharp look, he added, "After I received the letter, I wanted the route clear." You were that certain I'd need it? I was that certain I wasn't walking into this unprepared. The way station turned out to be a small stone structure built into the side of a hill, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. Roman produced a key from his jacket, ancient iron, worn smooth with use, and unlocked the heavy wooden door. Inside was sparse but functional. A single room with a stone fireplace, a rough-hewn table, 2 chairs, and a sleeping pallet in the corner. Shelves held preserved food, medical supplies, and weapons. A hunter's refuge. Roman immediately set about building a fire while Rosalie examined the supplies. Her stomach growled. She'd only eaten that piece of bread hours ago, and the night's exertion had burned through what little energy she'd had. "Eat," Roman said, not looking up from the kindling. "There's dried meat and hardtack. Not gourmet, but it'll keep you going." She wanted to refuse out of pure stubbornness, but survival trumped pride. She grabbed the food and sat at the table, watching him work. His movements were efficient, practiced. This wasn't a man who relied on servants for everything. He knew how to survive in rough conditions. The fire caught, and warmth began to fill the small space. Roman sat across from her, and for the first time since they'd met, she got a clear look at him in steady light. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe early 30s, but his eyes held the weight of someone who'd seen far more than his years suggested. A scar traced his left jawline, partially hidden by dark stubble. His hands, resting on the table, bore the calluses of a warrior, not a pampered royal. "You promised me answers," she said, breaking off a piece of hardtack. "Start talking." "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Why someone from your castle wants me dead. Why your wolf recognized me. Why you dropped everything to chase down an anonymous letter about a nobody from a village you've probably never even heard of before." I'd heard of Thornwick," he said quietly. "I've heard of every village in the Northern Territories. It's my job to know them." "That's not an answer." He leaned back, studying her with that unsettling intensity. "You're right. It's not." He was quiet for a moment, then, 15 years ago there was a raid on the northern border villages. A coordinated attack by rogue packs from across the Boundary Mountains. They hit 6 settlements in one night, burned them, killed anyone who resisted, took children as hostages. Rosalie's breath caught. She knew this story. She'd lived this story. "Thornwick was one of those villages," she whispered. "Yes, I was 17, newly ascended after my father's death. The attacks happened 3 days after my coronation." His voice remained steady, but she heard the old pain beneath it. "I led the response personally. We drove the raiders back, recovered most of the hostages, but we were too late for many of the villages. The damage was done." "You were there," she said, the realization crashing over her. "In Thornwick, during the raid." "I was. I pulled survivors from burning buildings. I tracked raiders through the forest. He stopped, his jaw tightening. "I carried a little girl out of a collapsed house, maybe 7 or 8 years old. She was unconscious from smoke inhalation. Her parents were already dead. I got her to the healers, made sure she survived, then had to move on to the next crisis." The room seemed to tilt. "I never knew her name," Roman continued. "There were so many survivors, so much chaos. But I never forgot her face. The way she looked so small in my arms. The way her heartbeat was so faint I thought I'd lost her twice before we reached help." "It was me," Rosalie heard herself say. "I was that girl." Their eyes met across the table, and the air between them seemed to crackle with something electric, something inevitable. "I know," Roman said softly. "I knew the moment I saw you tonight. 15 years older, but the same eyes, the same fire underneath the fear. You came all this way because you recognized me?" "I came because someone sent me a letter warning me you were in danger, and my instincts told me to listen. I came because something about the situation felt wrong. I came because—" He paused, seeming to wrestle with the words. "Because when I read your name, something in my chest hurt, and I've learned not to ignore feelings like that." Rosalie's mind was reeling. All these years she'd carried fragmented memories of that night. Fire, screams, strong arms lifting her, a voice telling her she was safe. She'd thought it was her father, in those confused moments before unconsciousness took her, but it hadn't been. It had been him. "The letter mentioned you were wolfless," Roman said, pulling her back to the present. "Is that true?" She stiffened. Yes, I've never shifted, never even felt the wolf inside me. The village healers said the trauma from the raid might have broken something, or maybe I was just born defective. The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. You're not defective. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because I can sense her. Rosalie froze. What? Your wolf. She's there, Rosalie. Buried deep, dormant, but definitely there. I can feel her every time I'm near you. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. And she can feel my wolf too. That's what the recognition was. Our wolves sensing each other, calling to each other. That's impossible. I would know if I had a wolf. I would feel... What happened to you after the raid? He interrupted. After you recovered, where did you go? The question threw her off balance. I stayed in Thornwick. The village took me in, made me a ward of the community. Who specifically? Elder Morvain. She assigned me to different families as I grew up. No one wanted to keep me permanently, so I moved around. Kitchen work, mostly, cleaning, whatever jobs no one else wanted. Roman's expression darkened. And Morvain, she's the one who oversees the mating hunt traditions? Yes, she's been the village elder for 30 years. She's the one who told me I had to participate or be exiled. When did you stop feeling your wolf? The question was so specific, so pointed, that Rosalie's defensive walls snapped up. Why does that matter? Because I think someone's been suppressing it, deliberately. The accusation was so outrageous that for a moment Rosalie could only stare. That's insane. Why would anyone... Think about it. A traumatized child, orphaned, dependent on the community, powerful enough that she survived a building collapse. What if you weren't just any wolf? What if you were strong enough to be a threat? A threat to who? I'm nobody. I have no family, no pack, no... You have bloodline, Roman said. Every wolf does. What was your family name? Your father's pack? Hart. Just Hart. My father was a farmer. My mother helped at the village school. They weren't anyone important. And Morvain never told you anything else? Never mentioned if your parents came from outside the village? If they had connections to other packs? Rosalie opened her mouth to say no, then stopped. There had been something. A conversation she'd overheard when she was 12 between Morvain and another elder. They'd been arguing about whether to tell her the truth before she came of age. But when Rosalie had asked later, Morvain had dismissed it as village gossip. What are you suggesting? She asked warily. I'm suggesting that you being wolfless might not be trauma. It might be suppression. There are herbs, potions that can bind a wolf if administered consistently over years, especially to someone young, still developing. But why? What possible reason? A sharp crack echoed outside. Roman was on his feet instantly, moving to the window with predatory grace. Rosalie grabbed her knife, heart hammering. Stay here, Roman ordered, his voice dropping to that alpha command that made her instincts scream to obey. But she'd never been good at following orders. She moved to the opposite window, peering through the narrow gap in the shutters. Dawn was breaking properly now, gray light filtering through the trees. At first she saw nothing, then movement. 3 figures approaching through the forest, moving cautiously but deliberately toward the way station. Not mercenaries this time. Village alphas. She recognized Marcus Thorne's distinctive walk, and beside him, her stomach dropped. Gareth Crane and Dolph Veyron, 2 of the most brutal men in Thornwick, the ones who treated the mating hunt like literal prey pursuit. They tracked us, she whispered. Impossible. I covered our trail. The ash root should have... Roman's eyes narrowed. Unless someone told them where to look. How would anyone know about this way station? They wouldn't, unless... His expression went cold. Unless the person who sent those mercenaries also told the village alphas where we'd be. Before Rosalie could process that terrifying implication, Marcus's voice rang out. We know you're in there, Rosalie. Come out now and we'll make this easy. Roman's hand went to the sword at his hip. She hadn't even noticed he was armed until now. You're not going out there, he said flatly. They'll break down the door. This is a way station, not a fortress. Then we'll go through them. There are 3 of them. You're good, but I'm the Alpha King. 3 village alphas are not a threat to me. He said it without arrogance, just stating fact. Maybe not in a fair fight, but Dolph Veyron doesn't fight fair. He's known for using poison, dirty tactics. Rosalie Hart! It was Gareth now, his voice booming. "The hunt isn't over until dawn, and dawn hasn't passed. You're still prey. Come out, or we're coming in." Roman moved toward the door, but Rosalie grabbed his arm. The contact sent a shock through both of them. She saw his eyes flash amber, felt her own pulse spike. "Wait," she said urgently. "If you kill them, you'll start a war. They're Thornwick alphas. The village will demand justice, even against you." "I don't care." "You should, because if this becomes about you killing village men to claim a woman, it plays right into whatever conspiracy is happening. Someone wants this confrontation. Can't you see that?" He stared at her, and she watched him wrestle with the logic versus his obvious desire to eliminate the threat. "Then what do you suggest?" he asked. "Let me talk to them." "Absolutely not. I know these men. I know how they think. Marcus is here because Lydia probably pushed him into it. She hates me, and this is her revenge. Gareth follows Marcus because he's too stupid to lead. But Dolph," she frowned, "Dolph's the dangerous one. He's smart, calculating. If we can separate him from the others, no, I'm not using you as bait. You're not using me as anything. I'm making a choice." She met his eyes steadily. "You said I wasn't broken. You said I was strong. So trust that." The conflict in his expression was almost painful to watch. "If anything goes wrong," he started, "you'll be right here, ready to fight. But let's try not to start a war if we can avoid it." She didn't wait for his agreement. She moved to the door, slid back the bolt, and stepped out into the cold morning air. The three alphas stood about 20 feet away, spread out in a loose semicircle. Marcus looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight. Gareth looked eager, almost excited. And Dolph? Dolph smiled at her like a cat that had cornered a mouse. "There she is," he said pleasantly, "the one who got away, or tried to." "The hunt is over," Rosalie said, keeping her voice steady. "Dawn has passed. I'm free to go." "Dawn just passed," Marcus countered. "And technically, you were spotted before then, which means the hunt was still active, and you were still fair game." "I'm not game. I'm a person. And I'm not coming back to Thornwick." "That's not how this works," Gareth growled. "You run, we catch, you submit. That's the tradition." "Tradition is just another word for we've always done it this way and we're too lazy to change," Rosalie shot back. "I don't recognize the hunt's authority. I don't recognize your claim. I'm leaving." Dolph's smile widened. "And the Alpha King in the way station behind you? What's his role in all this?" So they knew. Of course they knew. "He's protecting me from people who apparently want me dead," she said bluntly. "Like the mercenaries who attacked us last night." That got a reaction. Marcus's eyes widened slightly. Gareth looked genuinely confused. But Dolph's expression didn't change at all. "Mercenaries?" Marcus said. What are you talking about?" "3 hired killers tried to murder me in the forest." Roman stopped them. She focused on Marcus, the weakest link. "Did you know about that, Marcus? Did Lydia? Or were you just told to come out here and bring me back and you didn't ask questions?" We heard you'd run farther than expected. Morvain said you might be in danger from wild animals. Asked us to retrieve you." "Morvain sent you?" Rosalie felt ice form in her stomach. "Why would she care if I lived or died? She spent my whole life treating me like garbage." "She said it was the village's responsibility to protect all women during the hunt," Marcus said, but he sounded uncertain now. "And you believed her?" Rosalie shook her head. "Think, Marcus, when has Morvain ever cared about protecting anyone except her own power?" "Enough of this," Dolph interrupted smoothly. "The fact remains that you ran during a sanctioned hunt. You broke tradition. The village council will want answers, and they'll want them back in Thornwick. Come willingly or come by force, but you're coming." "She's not going anywhere with you." Roman stepped out of the way station, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. He didn't make threats, didn't posture. He simply stood beside Rosalie, and the sheer presence of him, the power radiating off him in waves, made the 3 village alphas take an involuntary step back. "You're Roman Ashcroft," Marcus said, his voice strangled. "I am, and I'm claiming formal protection over Rosalie Hart under kingdom law. Any attempt to take her against her will is an act of aggression against the crown." His eyes locked on Dolph. "Is Thornwick Village really prepared to go to war with Iron Peak over a mating hunt dispute. This isn't a dispute, Dolph said, and Rosalie noticed he still hadn't shown a shred of fear. This is internal village business. You have no authority here, Your Majesty. Thornwick maintains its own traditions under the autonomy agreements. Those agreements don't cover attempted murder. And that's what happened last night. 3 mercenaries, hired to kill Rosalie and make it look like a hunting accident. Roman's voice went deadly quiet. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to return to Thornwick. You're going to tell Elder Morvain that Rosalie is under royal protection pending an investigation into who tried to have her killed. And you're going to cooperate fully with any questions my investigators have. And if we refuse, Dolph asked, then I'll assume you're part of the conspiracy, and I'll treat you accordingly. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Marcus cracked. I don't know anything about mercenaries or conspiracies, he said quickly. I just came to find Rosalie because Morvain asked. If there's really an investigation, I'll cooperate. I don't want any trouble with the crown. Smart man, Roman said. Gareth looked between Dolph and Marcus, clearly uncertain. Finally, he sided with self-preservation. Yeah, same. We'll go back. Tell Morvain what you said. But Dolph didn't move. His eyes went from Roman to Rosalie and back again, and something flickered in them. Calculation. Decision. I understand, Your Majesty, he said finally. We'll deliver your message. He nodded to the others. Let's go. They retreated into the forest, Marcus and Gareth moving quickly, clearly eager to put distance between themselves and the Alpha King. But Dolph paused at the tree line, looking back. His eyes met Rosalie's, and in that moment, she saw something that made her blood run cold, recognition and satisfaction. Then he was gone. Roman immediately pulled Rosalie back inside the way station, bolting the door. That went better than expected, he said, though his shoulders remained tense. Did it? Rosalie moved to the window, watching the forest where the Alphas had disappeared. Because I think we just made a massive mistake. What do you mean? Dolph wasn't surprised. Not about the mercenaries, not about you being here, not about any of it. He knew, Roman. He knew everything before he even showed up. Roman's expression grew grim, which means he's either part of the conspiracy or he's being used by whoever is. Or both. Rosalie turned to face him. You said someone in your castle sent those mercenaries, used your seal. What if they also contacted someone in Thornwick, coordinated this whole thing? That would require planning, resources, a network of conspirators. Roman began pacing, his tactical mind clearly working through the possibilities. Who in my castle has the access and the motive to do something like this? You tell me. I've never been to Iron Peak. I don't know your people. He stopped pacing. My council consists of 5 advisors. 3 have been with me since my father's reign. I trust them completely. The other 2 are newer appointments. One is my head of security, Thane Blackwood, former military, unwaveringly loyal. The other is my diplomatic advisor, Veyron Ash. Rosalie's head snapped up. What did you say? Veyron Ashford. He's been with me for 2 years, came highly recommended from the Eastern. Veyron. Is he related to Dolph Veyron, the Alpha we just faced? Roman's face went very still. I never made that connection. Veyron isn't a common name, but it's not unheard of. I'd have to check the records. Check them, because if they're related, if there's a connection between someone in your inner circle and someone in Thornwick who clearly knew about this situation. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Roman moved to the shelves, grabbing supplies with swift efficiency. We need to get to Iron Peak, now. If there's a traitor in my council, I need to root them out before they make another move. And if it's a trap, if going to Iron Peak is exactly what they want, then we spring the trap on our terms. He handed her a pack. Food, water, basic medical supplies. Can you ride? A horse? Yes, but there's a stable a mile east of here. Emergency mounts for the patrol routes. We'll take 2 horses and push hard for Iron Peak. If we ride through the day, we can make it by nightfall. You want to ride for 12 hours straight? I want to end this before anyone else dies. Starting with you. He gripped her shoulders, and the contact sent that now familiar jolt through her system. I know you don't trust easily. I know you've been betrayed and abandoned and treated like you're worthless. But I'm asking you to trust me now. just for the next 24 hours. Let me get you somewhere safe. Let me investigate. And if I'm wrong, if this all turns out to be nothing, I'll personally escort you to the southern cities and make sure you have enough gold to start over." She wanted to say no. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run, to disappear, to trust no one but herself. But there was something in his eyes, something that called to a part of her she'd thought was dead. 24 hours, she said. But I keep my knife, and the first sign you're playing me, I'm gone. Deal. They gathered their supplies and left the way station, moving quickly through the forest toward the hidden stable. The morning was fully bright now, birds singing, sunlight filtering through the canopy. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, Rosalie couldn't shake the feeling of invisible eyes watching their every move. The stable was exactly where Roman said it would be, a camouflage structure built into a rocky outcropping. Inside were 4 horses, all of them larger and better bred than any Rosalie had seen in Thornwick. Roman saddled 2 of them with practiced ease while Rosalie kept watch. "You really think your wolf is there?" she asked suddenly. "Buried inside me?" He paused, looking at her over the horse's back. "I don't just think it, I know it. And I think once we figure out who's been suppressing it and why, you'll know it too. What if you're wrong? What if I'm just broken and you're seeing what you want to see because of some bond? Or then I'm wrong, and we'll deal with that." But Rosalie... He came around the horse, standing close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "I don't think I'm wrong, and deep down, neither do you." Before she could respond, he swung up onto his horse. "Mount up. We have a long ride ahead." They rode hard, pushing the horses to the edge of their endurance. Roman led them along routes that avoided main roads, sticking to forest paths and game trails that would be nearly impossible to track. Twice they stopped to rest the horses and eat, but the breaks were brief, tense. Rosalie's mind churned the entire time. Everything she thought she knew about her life was unraveling. The village that raised her, the elder who supposedly cared for her, the wolflessness she'd accepted as permanent. What if it was all a lie? "Tell me about Iron Peak," she said during their second rest stop. "What am I walking into?" Roman considered the question. A castle built into the side of a mountain. 300 years old, expanded and fortified over generations. It houses my council, my guard, and about 200 permanent staff. Everyone there has been vetted, but clearly not well enough. How many people know we're coming? No one. I didn't send word ahead. We'll arrive unannounced, which should give us an advantage if someone's planning a welcoming committee. You really think they'd be bold enough to attack you in your own castle? I think if someone's already bold enough to use my seal to hire mercenaries, they're bold enough for almost anything. He handed her a water flask. But they're also smart, which means the attack won't be direct. It'll be subtle, poison, maybe. An arranged accident, something that looks natural. How reassuring. I'm not going to lie to you about the danger, but I'm also not going to let anything happen to you. The absolute certainty in his voice made her believe him, despite everything. They remounted and continued riding. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, when Iron Peak finally came into view. It was massive, bigger than Rosalie had imagined, even with the stories she'd heard. The castle seemed to grow out of the mountain itself, towers reaching toward the sky, walls thick enough to withstand sieges. Lights were beginning to appear in windows, giving the whole structure an almost magical quality. "Home," Roman said quietly. But as they approached the main gate, something felt wrong. The guards on duty weren't at their posts. The courtyard, which should have been busy with evening activities, was eerily quiet. Roman's hand went to his sword. "Stay close." They rode through the open gate, which should never have been left open, and into the courtyard. That's when they saw it. Bodies. 3 guards lying motionless near the main entrance. Roman was off his horse in an instant, checking for signs of life. "They're alive. Drugged, I think." "It's a trap," Rosalie said, her voice tight. "Yes." Roman stood, his eyes scanning the castle walls, the windows, the shadows. "They knew we were coming. They knew exactly when." "How is that possible? You said you didn't send word." A slow clap echoed from the castle entrance. A figure emerged from the doorway. Medium height, lean build, dressed in expensive council robes. He had Dolph Veyron's eyes. Welcome home, Your Majesty, Varon Ashford said, his smile cold and triumphant. We've been expecting you. Roman's entire body went rigid, muscles coiling like a predator preparing to strike. Rosalie felt the shift in him, the way his presence suddenly filled the courtyard with barely restrained violence. But when he spoke, his voice was eerily calm. Varon, I don't recall summoning my council for an evening reception. No, you didn't. Varon descended the steps with the casual confidence of a man who held all the cards. But when the Alpha King disappears for an entire day and night, riding hard toward home with a mysterious woman, certain precautions must be taken. For your safety, of course. Of course. Roman's hand remained on his sword hilt. The drugged guards were for my safety too, I assume? Merely sleeping. They'll wake in a few hours with nothing worse than headaches. I needed to ensure our conversation would be private. Varon's eyes slid to Rosalie, and she felt the predatory assessment in his gaze. So this is the famous Rosalie Hart, the wolfless orphan who somehow captured the Alpha King's attention. How unexpected. Where's Thane? Roman demanded. Where's the rest of my guard? Dealing with an urgent matter in the western barracks. A supply contamination that's left half our forces incapacitated. Terrible timing, really. Varon's smile never reached his eyes. Which leaves just us and my men. Shadows moved along the castle walls. Rosalie counted at least a dozen figures, all armed, all positioned with military precision. They weren't castle guard. Their armor was wrong, their weapons too varied. Mercenaries, just like the ones in the forest. You've been busy, Roman said, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. I've been patient. There's a difference. Varon clasped his hands behind his back, the picture of casual authority. Did you really think I'd let you walk in here and ruin years of careful planning? You're brilliant, Roman, but predictable. The moment I sent that letter about the girl, I knew you'd come running. The moment you found the mercenaries, I knew you'd bring her here to protect her. You followed the script perfectly. What script? Rosalie found her voice, though fear made it rough. What do you want with me? Want with you? Oh, my dear, you misunderstand. I don't want anything with you. Varon's expression hardened. I want you dead. You were supposed to die 15 years ago in that raid. You were supposed to die last night in the forest. You've been remarkably difficult to eliminate, but third time's the charm, as they say. Roman moved half a step in front of Rosalie, a protective gesture that was probably instinctive. You orchestrated the border raids 15 years ago? Not orchestrated. Facilitated. There's a difference. Varon began to pace, clearly enjoying his moment of revelation. Your father was growing too powerful, too influential. The Eastern packs needed him weakened, distracted. So we arranged for the rogue packs to attack the border villages. The plan was simple. Create chaos, force your father to respond, and in the confusion, eliminate certain problematic bloodlines. The Hart family, Rosalie whispered, the pieces falling into horrifying place. Very good. Yes, the Harts. Your father wasn't just a farmer, Rosalie. He was Marcus Hart, last surviving member of the Silver Blood line, one of the 3 founding bloodlines of the Northern Territories. A bloodline with the power to challenge any alpha, including kings. Varon's voice dripped with disdain. He fled that legacy, married a common wolf, hid in a village farming turnips. But blood is blood, power is power, and you inherited both. Roman's entire posture changed. Silver blood? That's impossible. That line died out 2 centuries ago. That's what everyone believed. That's what we wanted them to believe. Varon stopped pacing, his attention fixed on Rosalie like a scientist studying a specimen. But Marcus survived the purges by hiding. And then he made the fatal mistake of having a child, a daughter who showed signs of the silver blood gift even as an infant. What gift? Rosalie's mind was reeling. I don't have any power. I can't even shift. Because we made sure you couldn't. Varon's smile was cruel. Do you remember Elder Morvane's tonics, the ones she gave you every week for your health after the raid? Shadowroot extract. Administered consistently from age 8 onward, it binds a wolf so tightly that the host doesn't even know it exists. You've been drugged for 15 years, Rosalie, kept weak and compliant and absolutely certain of your own worthlessness. The words hit like physical blows. Every weekly visit to Morvane's cottage, Every bitter tonic she'd been forced to drink, every reassurance that it was helping her heal from the trauma. It had all been poison. "You're lying," she said, but even she could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Am I? Then explain why Roman's wolf recognized yours despite your supposed wolflessness. Explain why 3 trained mercenaries couldn't kill you in the forest. You fought back, didn't you? Moved faster than a normal human could. Explain why you've survived things that should have killed you." Veron tilted his head. "The silver blood gift is resilience, Rosalie. Enhanced healing, enhanced instincts, enhanced survival capabilities. Even suppressed, even drugged. It keeps you alive. It's infuriating, really." Roman's hand tightened on his sword. "If you wanted her dead so badly, why not just kill her in the village? Why this elaborate game?" "Because killing her in Thornwick would have raised questions. A mysterious death, an investigation, potential discovery of the Shadowroot treatments. No, it had to look natural. An accident during the mating hunt was perfect, violent, chaotic, easy to dismiss. When that failed, I had to improvise." He gestured to the surrounding mercenaries. "But now we're in my territory, on my terms. The only witness to her death will be you, Roman, and unfortunately, you'll die trying to protect her. A tragic end to a promising reign." "You think you can kill an Alpha King in his own castle and claim the throne?" Roman's laugh was dark and dangerous. "The Council will never accept it. The Pax will revolt." "The Council will accept what I tell them. Half of them are already loyal to me, bought, blackmailed, or threatened into compliance. The other half will fall in line once I present evidence of your instability." Veron pulled a small vial from his pocket, dark liquid swirling inside. "Shadowroot doesn't just suppress wolves, Roman. In high enough doses, administered subtly over time, it can make an alpha paranoid, aggressive, irrational. I've been adding it to your wine for 6 months now. Small amounts, nothing obvious, but enough that when I tell the council you went mad, killed a village girl in a fit of rage, and died in the resulting confrontation with your own guards, they'll believe it. They'll believe it because they've already seen the signs." Rosalie saw the flash of doubt cross Roman's face, the moment of terrible recognition, the mood swings he'd probably dismissed, the unusual aggression, the instincts that had been slightly off. "You've been poisoning me," Roman said quietly. "I've been preparing you for retirement. There's a difference." Veron nodded to his men. "Take them. Alive. I want the girl's death to look like the king killed her first." The mercenaries moved in. Roman drew his sword in one fluid motion, the blade singing as it cleared the scabbard. "Rosalie, run! Now! I'm not leaving you! Run!" The alpha command in his voice was impossible to resist. Rosalie's body moved before her mind caught up, instinct overriding logic. She bolted for the nearest archway, her father's knife clutched in her hand. Behind her she heard the clash of steel, Roman's roar of fury, the mercenaries' shouts. But she kept running, tears streaming down her face, because every survival instinct she'd honed over 23 years was screaming at her to get away. She burst through a doorway into the castle proper. The interior was a maze of corridors and staircases, dimly lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on stone walls. She had no idea where she was going, just away, anywhere, somewhere she could think. Footsteps pounded behind her. At least 2 pursuers, maybe 3. She ducked into a side passage, pressing herself against the wall, trying to quiet her ragged breathing. The footsteps passed, moving deeper into the castle. She waited, counting heartbeats, then emerged carefully. A hand grabbed her from behind. She spun, knife flashing, but the grip on her wrist was iron strong. "Easy, girl. I'm not your enemy." The voice was rough, gravelly. The man attached to it was massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, built like a bear, with scars crisscrossing his weathered face. But his eyes, dark and sharp, held no malice. "Thane Blackwood," he said, releasing her wrist. "Head of the King's Guard. And if Veyron's moving against Roman, I'm guessing you're the catalyst. He said you were dealing with contaminated supplies in the Western Barracks." "Bullshit! I was locked in the wine cellar with 6 of my most loyal men, door barred from outside. We only just broke out." He glanced down the corridor. "Where's Roman?" "The courtyard, fighting Veyron's mercenaries. He told me to run." "Of course he did. Idiot's always trying to play hero." Thane started moving, and Rosalie had to jog to keep up with his long strides. How many mercenaries? At least a dozen, maybe more. And Veyron himself? Watching, talking. He's the one who's been poisoning Roman, Shadowroot. He's been planning this for months. Thane cursed, low and vicious. That explains the behavior changes. We thought it was stress from border disputes. Didn't think to check for fucking poison. He stopped at an intersection, listening. There's a secondary armory 2 floors down. If we can reach it, we can arm ourselves properly and come at them from behind. I'm not armed properly? Rosalie held up her knife. Thane's expression might have been amusement, might have been respect. You'll do, but I prefer a sword. Come on. They descended through the castle, Thane navigating with the ease of someone who knew every stone. Twice they encountered mercenaries. Twice Thane dispatched them with brutal efficiency, snapping necks before they could raise an alarm. You're good at this, Rosalie observed. I've been doing it for 30 years. If I wasn't good, I'd be dead. He kicked open a heavy door, revealing a room filled with weapons and armor. Grab whatever feels right. We're going back in hard. Rosalie selected a short sword, longer reach than her knife, but light enough for her to wield effectively. Thane armed himself with a massive 2-handed blade that would have been comically large on anyone else. Listen, Thane said, his voice suddenly serious. I don't know what your relationship is with the king, and I don't care. But he's a good man. Best ruler the Northern Territories have had in generations. If Veyron kills him, this whole region descends into chaos and bloodshed. He met her eyes. So whatever happens out there, whatever it costs, we keep Roman alive. Understood? Understood. They moved back through the castle, faster now, with purpose. The sounds of combat grew louder, steel on steel, shouts of pain and fury, the snarls of partially shifted wolves. They emerged onto a balcony overlooking the courtyard. The scene below was carnage. Roman fought like a demon, his sword a blur of lethal precision. Bodies littered the ground around him. At least 6 mercenaries down, possibly dead. But more kept coming, and he was tiring. She could see it in the slight delay in his movements, the way he favored his left side. He'd been wounded, though his shifter healing was probably keeping it from being fatal. Veyron stood at a safe distance, watching with detached interest. Like this was entertainment. Balcony's too high to jump safely, Thane muttered. We need to circle around, come in from the east entrance. No time. Rosalie was already moving to the edge. He won't last that long. Girl, that's a 20-foot drop. You'll break both legs. She jumped. The fall seemed to last forever and no time at all. She hit the ground hard, rolling instinctively to absorb the impact. Pain shot through her ankle, sharp and immediate, but not the agony of broken bones. Sprained, maybe. She could work with sprained. She came up fighting. The nearest mercenary turned toward her, surprise on his face. She drove her knife under his ribs before he could recover, the way her father had taught her all those years ago. He went down gasping. Roman's head snapped toward her. What are you? You're supposed to be running. I don't take orders well. You should know that by now. She yanked her knife free, moving to his back. 2 against 12 was still terrible odds, but better than 1 against 12. Thane's roar echoed from the east entrance as the massive guard charged in, his sword cleaving through mercenaries like wheat. Now it was 3 against 8. Better. Impressive, Veyron called from his safe position. The crippled wolf girl has teeth, but it doesn't matter. You're all going to die here tonight. Big talk from someone hiding behind hired muscle, Rosalie shot back. If you're so confident, come down here and fight us yourself. I don't fight. I plan. I strategize. I win. Veyron pulled out another vial, this one filled with something that glowed faintly in the torchlight. And I've planned for every contingency. Even this one. He threw the vial at the ground. It shattered, and dark smoke billowed up instantly, thick and choking. Rosalie's eyes watered, her throat burned. She heard coughing, heard Roman curse, heard Thane's warning shout. The smoke wasn't just obscuring vision, it was Shadowroot, aerosolized Shadowroot. Her knees buckled. Strength drained from her limbs like water through a sieve. Around her she heard similar sounds, Roman hitting the ground, Thane's grunt of pain. Even the mercenaries were affected, stumbling, weakened, but not Veyron. He walked through the smoke untouched, and Rosalie realized he must have taken an antidote beforehand. The beauty of Shadowroot, Veyron said conversationally, crouching beside Roman's prone form, is that it doesn't just suppress wolves, it suppresses strength, speed, healing, makes even an alpha king as weak as a human child. He grabbed Roman's hair, yanking his head back. Look at me. I want you to see this. Roman's eyes were unfocused, but there was still rage in them, still defiance. Good. Hold on to that. Veron released him, moving toward Rosalie. Now watch your precious mate die. He pulled a dagger from his belt. Rosalie tried to move, tried to fight, but her body wouldn't respond. The shadow root had locked her muscles, turned her bones to water. She could only watch as Veron approached, death in his eyes. Then something changed. Deep inside her chest, where there had always been silence, something stirred. A presence. Ancient, furious, absolutely done with being caged. Her wolf. The silver blood legacy that Veron had spent 15 years trying to bury. It rose like a tidal wave, crashing through the shadow root suppression with raw, primal force. Rosalie felt it, felt her, for the first time in her conscious memory. Felt the power that was her birthright, the strength that had kept her alive through impossible odds, the wild spirit that no amount of poison could completely destroy. And she was pissed. Light exploded from Rosalie's body, silver light, bright enough to blind. Her bones shifted, reformed, changed. The transformation happened so fast it should have been agonizing, but instead it felt like liberation, like breaking through the surface of water after nearly drowning. When the light faded, a wolf stood where Rosalie had been. Not just any wolf, a silver blood. She was larger than any normal shifter, her fur the color of moonlight, her eyes blazing amber silver. Power radiated from her in waves that made the remaining mercenaries stumble back in terror. Veron's face went white. Impossible. The shadow root should have... She lunged. Her jaws closed around his arm, the one holding the dagger, and she bit down hard. Bone crunched. Veron screamed. She released him, tossing him aside like a rag doll, then turned to the mercenaries. They ran. Smart choice. The shadow root smoke was dissipating now, blown away by the wind her transformation had created. Roman was already recovering. His shifter healing accelerated now that the poison was clearing. Thane was on his feet, blood streaming from a cut over his eye, but otherwise functional. Rosalie shifted back to human form, another impossibility. Shifting twice in such quick succession should have exhausted her, and stood naked in the courtyard, chest heaving, blood on her mouth. Veron's blood. I told you, she said, her voice rough but steady. I don't follow orders well. Roman was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Awe, maybe, or fear, possibly both. Thane broke the silence. Well, that's new. Veron was crawling toward the castle entrance, his ruined arm cradled against his chest. You think this changes anything? You think one shift makes you powerful? The shadow root is already in your system. You'll weaken, you'll collapse, and when you do, when I do, I'll still be stronger than you. Rosalie walked toward him, unashamed of her nakedness, uncaring of the cold. You spent 15 years poisoning me, suppressing me, trying to break me, and I survived. Every dose, every lie, every moment you tried to convince me I was worthless, I survived it all. That's the silver blood gift, isn't it? We endure. She crouched beside him, grabbing his face roughly. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell us everything. Every conspirator, every plan, every secret you've been hiding. And if you cooperate, if you give us what we need, maybe Roman will let you live out your life in a cell instead of executed for treason. And if I don't cooperate, Rosalie smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. Then I'll let my wolf ask the questions, and she's not nearly as merciful as I am. Veron's remaining courage crumbled. The Eastern Pax. They funded everything. They want the Northern territories destabilized so they can expand their influence. I was their agent, planted in Roman's council 2 years ago. There are 3 others, one in the southern provinces, one in the west, one in the capital city. Names, Roman growled, having recovered enough to stand. Veron gave them. 5 minutes of names, locations, payment methods, communication channels. Everything they needed to dismantle the conspiracy. When he finished, he looked up at Roman with something like hatred. You think you've won? You've won nothing. This is bigger than me, bigger than a few conspirators. The old bloodlines are rising again, the old powers. The world you know is ending, Roman, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Maybe not, Roman said quietly. But I can stop you. He nodded to Thane, who grabbed Veyron and hauled him to his feet. Throw him in the deepest cell we have. Maximum security. I'll deal with him after we've secured the castle. As Thane dragged the traitor away, Roman turned to Rosalie. She became suddenly, acutely aware of her nakedness. He must have noticed because he shrugged off his cloak, torn and blood-stained but still functional, and wrapped it around her shoulders. You shifted, he said, wonder in his voice. I did. You're Silverblood. Apparently. You jumped off a 20-foot balcony. That was probably stupid in retrospect. He laughed, actually laughed, the sound sharp and slightly unhinged. Probably? Rosalie, you could have died. Your ankle is the size of a melon. You're covered in blood. And you just shifted for the first time in your life after being poisoned for 15 years. That's not stupid. That's... He trailed off, searching for words. Insane? She offered. I was going to say magnificent. He reached out, hesitated, then cupped her face gently. You saved my life. Again. I'm starting to see a pattern. You saved mine first, 15 years ago. I'm just returning the favor. His thumb traced her cheekbone, careful of the bruises forming there. The shadow root in your system. You need a healer. Proper treatment to flush it out. And rest. You're going to crash hard when the adrenaline wears off. I can rest when we've secured the castle. How many people did Veyron say were loyal to him? Half the council, plus an unknown number of staff and guards. Roman's expression hardened. We need to root them out before they can regroup or send word to the Eastern Pacts. Then, let's get to work. They spent the next 3 hours systematically taking control of Iron Peak. Thane rallied the loyal guards, the ones who'd been locked away or drugged. They secured the castle's key positions, the armory, the gates, the council chambers. They arrested anyone Veyron had named, along with several others whose reactions to the arrests revealed their guilt. By midnight, the castle was theirs. Rosalie sat in the king's private study, wrapped in borrowed clothes several sizes too large, her injured ankle elevated and bound. A healer had examined her, declared her miraculous, and administered a tonic to counteract the shadow root. She'd almost refused. Tonics had been her poison for 15 years. But Roman had held her hand and promised it was safe, and she'd trusted him. The tonic tasted like mint and burned going down. But within minutes, she felt clearer, stronger. The fog that had always lived at the edges of her consciousness was lifting. Is this what normal feels like? She asked wonderingly. Roman, sitting across from her reviewing arrest reports, looked up. What do you mean? This, being able to think clearly, not having that constant exhaustion, I thought that was just life. I thought everyone felt like that. His expression went soft. No, that was the poison, and you lived with it for 15 years. The fact that you survived, that you stayed strong and fierce and unbroken, Rosalie, that's not normal. That's extraordinary. She looked away, uncomfortable with the praise. I didn't have a choice. You always had a choice. You could have given up, given in, let them make you into what they wanted. But you didn't. You fought, every single day. He set aside his reports, moving to kneel beside her chair. I know you don't trust easily. I know you've been hurt and betrayed by everyone who was supposed to protect you, but I'm asking you to trust me now. Not because of some bond or recognition or prophecy, but because I see you, Rosalie Hart. I see your strength, your courage, your refusal to be broken. And I want to help you become everything you were meant to be. She met his eyes, those amber depths that had first appeared in her forest and changed everything. What if I don't know what I'm meant to be? Then we'll figure it out together. The moment stretched between them, fragile and precious. Rosalie felt something shifting inside her. Not the wolf, though she was there too, content and watchful. Something else. The walls she'd built around her heart, brick by brick, over 23 years of survival. They were crumbling. And for the first time in her life, she was letting them. Okay, she whispered. Together. Roman's hand covered hers, warm and steady. Together. A knock at the door broke the moment. Thane entered, his expression grim. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Roman stood, instantly shifting back to Alpha King mode. We found a locked chamber in Veyron's quarters. Took 3 of us to break the door down. Thane's jaw tightened. You need to see what's inside. Both of you. They followed him through the castle to the eastern wing, where the council members kept their private apartments. Veyron's door was indeed shattered, splinters of oak scattered across the floor. Inside, the apartment was luxurious, expensive furniture, rare artwork, all the trappings of wealth and position. But it was the hidden chamber that made Rosalie's blood run cold. The walls were covered in papers, maps, letters, reports, all connected by red string in an elaborate web of conspiracy. But it wasn't the scope of the plot that froze her. It was the shrine. One entire wall was dedicated to her. Sketches of her face at different ages, surveillance reports detailing her movements, medical records showing shadowroot dosages, and in the center a portrait, herself as a child, maybe 6 years old, with her parents. Below the portrait, written in Veyron's careful script, the last Silverblood, to be eliminated before awakening. He was obsessed, Thane said quietly. This isn't just conspiracy. This is personal. Roman moved closer to the wall, reading the documents. His face grew darker with each revelation. These go back 20 years. Veyron didn't just facilitate the raid 15 years ago. He planned it. The entire attack was designed to kill Rosalie's family and destroy the Silverblood line. But I was just a child, Rosalie said, her voice hollow. Why would I be a threat? Roman pointed to a document dated 3 months before the raid. Because of this, a prophecy from an eastern seer. The silver wolf shall rise in the north, and in her rising, the old powers shall return. She will stand between kingdoms and chaos, and her choice will determine the fate of all packs. A prophecy. Rosalie laughed, but there was no humor in it. My entire life was destroyed because of a vague prophecy? Not just destroyed, orchestrated. Roman's voice was tight with rage. Every hardship, every humiliation, every moment of pain, Veyron arranged it all. He kept you in Thornwick under Morvaine's watch. He made sure you were isolated, powerless, convinced of your own worthlessness. Because as long as you believed you were broken, you'd never try to access your true power. And if I never accessed my power, the prophecy couldn't come true. The full horror of it settled over her. He was going to kill me during the mating hunt because I was getting too old. If I'd survived to 25 without shifting, there was a chance the Silverblood gift would manifest on its own, shadowroot or not. He was running out of time. Thane studied the wall. So he hired mercenaries, arranged for you to run into them, and planned to blame it on hunting accident. When that failed, when Roman showed up, he had to improvise. Roman turned to face her, and his expression was terrible. This means the Eastern Pacts know about you, about what you could become. Veyron was their agent, but he's been captured. They'll send others, maybe armies. They'll stop at nothing to kill you before you can fulfill the prophecy. Then let them come. Rosalie's voice was steel. I survived their poison, their mercenaries, their conspiracies. I'm done hiding. I'm done being afraid. You have every right to be angry, Roman said. But anger won't be enough. You need training. Your wolf just awakened. You don't know how to control her fully. You don't know how to fight as a shifter. You don't know pack politics or territorial law or any of the things you'll need to survive in this world. Then teach me. It takes years to... I don't care how long it takes. I'm not running anymore. She moved to the shrine wall, tearing down the portrait of her family. They took everything from me. My parents, my childhood, my identity, 15 years of my life. I'm taking it back. All of it. Roman studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Then we start tomorrow, but tonight, you rest. Your body's been through trauma. You need... The explosion cut him off. The entire castle shook. Somewhere below, glass shattered and stone crumbled. Alarm bells began to ring. Thane was already moving toward the door. That came from the western wall, near the cells, where they were holding Veyron. They raced through the castle, joining the stream of guards rushing toward the blast site. Smoke billowed through the corridors, making Rosalie's eyes water. When they reached the western cell block, the scene was chaos. The outer wall had been breached, a massive hole blown in the ancient stone, large enough to drive a cart through. The cells were empty, their doors hanging open, and in the center of the destruction stood three figures. No, not figures. Wolves. Massive ones, larger even than Roman's rumored beast form. Eastern Pack Alphas. The reinforcements Varen had been waiting for. One of them shifted back to human form. A woman, tall and scarred, with eyes like chips of ice. Roman Ashcroft, how nice of you to join us. We've come for the silver blood. You're not taking her, Roman growled. We're not asking for permission. The woman smiled, revealing teeth filed to points. The Eastern Council has decreed that the silver bloodline ends tonight. Varen may have failed, but we won't. Surrender the girl, or we level your castle and take her from the ashes. You'd start a war over a prophecy? We'd prevent a war by eliminating the catalyst. The silver blood gift is chaos, Roman. It's power that can't be controlled, can't be predicted. The last silver blood alpha nearly destroyed the territories with her ambition. We won't allow another. Rosalie stepped forward, shrugging off Roman's restraining hand. I'm right here. If you want me dead so badly, try it yourself. Let's see how your prophecy holds up. The woman's eyes gleamed. Brave words from a wolf who shifted for the first time tonight. Do you even know how to fight in that form? No, Rosalie admitted. But I know how to survive, and I've been doing that a lot longer than you've been hunting me. Then let's test that survival instinct. The woman shifted back to wolf form, and her companions followed. They attacked as one. Roman shifted instantly, his massive black wolf intercepting the first attacker. Thane and the guards formed a defensive line, but they were outmatched. These were Eastern alphas, bred for war, trained from birth. Rosalie's wolf surged forward without conscious thought, meeting the scarred woman's charge head-on. They collided with bone-jarring force, teeth snapping, claws raking. The woman was experienced, ruthless, targeting vulnerable spots with surgical precision. But Rosalie had something the woman didn't. 15 years of suppressed rage. She fought with the desperation of someone who had nothing left to lose, the fury of someone who'd been hunted her entire life. Every bite, every slash was payback for poison and lies and stolen years. Her silver blood heritage gave her strength, but her human experiences gave her cunning. The woman had been trained to fight wolves. She didn't know how to fight someone who'd survived as human prey. Rosalie used tactics that would be dishonorable in formal pack combat. She feinted low and struck high. She used the rubble from the explosion as cover and weapons. She fought dirty, vicious, with no regard for tradition or rules. And it worked. The woman went down with Rosalie's jaws locked around her throat, submission or death her only options. The other two Eastern wolves saw their leader fall and hesitated. In that moment of uncertainty, Roman struck. His wolf was a force of nature, alpha power radiating in waves that made even Rosalie's instincts scream to submit. He took down one attacker with brutal efficiency, leaving the third to flee through the breach in the wall. Silence fell over the ruined cell block. Rosalie released the scarred woman, who shifted back to human form, blood streaming from the wound in her neck. You fight like a scavenger, she rasped. No honor. Honor is a luxury for people who have choices, Rosalie replied, also shifting back. I learned to fight however I could to survive. If that offends your sense of tradition, I really don't care. The woman coughed, crimson staining her lips. The Eastern Council will send more, stronger, better prepared. This isn't over. Good, Rosalie said coldly, because I'm just getting started. Roman, back in human form, crouched beside the fallen alpha. Where's Varen? The woman smiled through bloody teeth. Gone. The explosion was cover for his extraction. He's probably halfway to the eastern border by now, along with all the evidence from his chambers. We have copies of documents, not of the artifacts he was collecting, not of the real evidence. Her eyes found Rosalie. He has your parents' journals, Silverblood, the ones that detailed your bloodline, your gift, your destiny, everything you'd need to understand what you really are. And he's taking them to our council, where they'll use that information to make sure the next attack is the last one you survive. The words hit like a physical blow. Her parents had left journals, written down the truth, and now that truth was in enemy hands. We need to go after him, Rosalie said urgently. If they study those journals, if they learn how to counter my abilities, we can't, Roman said grimly. We have a castle full of prisoners, a blown wall, injured guards. We need to secure our position before we can pursue anyone. Then he wins. He escapes with the one thing that could tell me who I really am, and we just let him go? We make the smart choice. We protect what we have and rebuild our strength. Roman stood, his voice taking on the alpha authority that made his orders impossible to disobey. Veyron will surface again. Men like him always do. And when he does, we'll be ready. Rosalie wanted to argue, wanted to chase after the traitor and take back what was hers. But she could see the logic in Roman's words, much as she hated it. They'd won this battle. But the war had only just begun. And somewhere in the darkness, Veyron was carrying her past into the hands of enemies who would use it to destroy her future. The Eastern Alpha's broken body was carried away by Thane's men while healers rushed to tend the wounded. Rosalie stood in the ruined cell block, staring at the gaping hole in the castle wall where Veyron had vanished into the night. Her fists clenched so tightly, her nails drew blood from her palms. Roman's hand settled on her shoulder, gentle but grounding. I know what you're thinking. You don't. You're thinking about going after him alone, tracking him through the mountains, taking back those journals by force. His voice was quiet, understanding. I'm thinking the same thing, but we'd both be dead before we reached the eastern border. So we do nothing? We let him win? We do what's smart. He turned her to face him, and the intensity in his amber eyes made her breath catch. Veyron has a 12-hour head start minimum. He's traveling with Eastern Pack protection. Even if we mobilized every guard in Iron Peak, we couldn't catch him before he reaches their territory. Once he's there, he's untouchable. The Eastern Council would see any incursion as an act of war. Then we're at war already, Rosalie said fiercely. They sent assassins. They blew up your castle. They sent deniable assets. Mercenaries and rogue alphas that can't be traced directly to the Council. Roman's jaw tightened. If we retaliate openly, we give them the excuse they've been looking for to invade. We'd be playing into their hands. So what do you suggest? We sit here and wait for the next attack? No. We prepare. We train. We turn you into the weapon they're afraid you'll become. He gestured to the destruction around them. They fear the Silverblood gift because they can't control it. They fear you because you're unpredictable. So let's make you unbeatable. Rosalie wanted to argue, wanted to rage against the unfairness of it all. But beneath the anger, she recognized the truth in his words. She'd shifted once, fought once as a wolf. She'd won through desperation and fury, not skill, against trained Eastern warriors, against alphas who'd spent lifetimes mastering combat. She'd be slaughtered. How long? She asked. For what? For training, to become what you're describing, to be ready for them. Roman was silent for a moment, calculating. 6 months minimum. A year would be better. The Silverblood gift is powerful, but raw power without control is just liability. You need to learn pack dynamics, combat strategy, territorial politics. You need to master your wolf, not just coexist with her. I don't have a year. You said it yourself, they'll attack again. Sooner rather than later. Then we make you ready faster. He looked toward Thane, who was coordinating the wall repairs. Thane was the best combat instructor in the kingdom before I made him head of guard. He can teach you to fight. I can teach you to lead. And there's someone else, someone who knows more about ancient bloodlines than anyone alive. Who? My grandmother, Ilara Ashcroft. She's been living in seclusion in the northern mountains for 20 years, ever since my father died. She's old blood, connected to the founding packs. If anyone knows the truth about the Silverblood legacy beyond what Veyron stole, it's her. Hope flickered in Rosalie's chest. You think she'll help? I think she'll be fascinated. She always believed the old bloodlines would resurface eventually. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Fair warning, she's eccentric, blunt. She'll probably insult you within 5 minutes of meeting you. But she's brilliant, and she doesn't waste time on pleasantries. Sounds like my kind of teacher. The Eastern Alpha, the scarred woman, groaned from where she lay bound under guard. Roman moved to crouch beside her, his expression hard. You're going to tell me everything. Eastern Council movements, supply routes, how many more attacks they're planning. The woman spat blood at his feet. I'll tell you nothing, King. You can torture me, kill me. I won't betray my pack. I'm not going to torture you. Roman's voice was cold. I'm going to offer you a choice. Tell me what I need to know, and I'll send you back to the Eastern Territories with a message. The Silverblood lives, and she's under my protection. Any further attacks will be considered acts of war. Or refuse, and I'll execute you as a traitor and send your head instead. You think threats will... This isn't a threat. It's a statement of fact. Roman leaned closer. You came into my territory. You attacked my people. You tried to kidnap a woman under my protection. By every law in the Northern Territories, I have the right to end your life right now. I'm offering mercy. Take it or don't. The woman studied him for a long moment, then laughed, harsh and bitter. You're too soft, Ashcroft. That's why you'll lose. The Eastern Council will send wave after wave until the Silverblood is dead, and your mercy won't stop them. Maybe not, but killing you won't stop them either. So I'd rather send a living messenger than a dead martyr. He straightened. Thane, have her wounds treated. When she's stable enough to travel, send her east with my declaration. If the Council wants war, they'll have it, but they don't get to claim we struck first. As Thane moved to follow orders, the scarred woman called out, You're making a mistake, Silverblood. Rosalie turned back. What mistake? Trusting him. Trusting any of them. The woman's eyes held something almost like pity. You think you found allies? You think the Alpha King will protect you out of the goodness of his heart? You're a weapon, girl. A tool. The moment you're no longer useful, you'll be discarded like all the other pawns in this game. That's enough, Roman growled. But Rosalie held up a hand. No. Let her talk. What are you trying to say? I'm saying ask yourself why he really came for you that night in the forest. Was it to save you, or was it because that anonymous letter told him you were valuable? The woman's smile was cruel. The Eastern Council fears what you might become. But what happens when the Northern Territories fear the same thing? When you're too powerful to control, too dangerous to keep alive? Where will your protector be then? The words burrowed into Rosalie's mind like poisoned barbs, finding all her deepest insecurities. She glanced at Roman, searching his face for any hint of deception. He met her eyes steadily. She's trying to divide us. Don't let her. Is she wrong, though? You came because of a letter warning you I was valuable, not because you knew me, not because you cared because I was strategically important. I came because my instincts told me to. Because something in that letter resonated with a part of me I didn't understand yet. Roman's voice was firm. Yes, I knew you were important, but I didn't know why. I didn't know about the Silverblood legacy, or the prophecy, or any of it. I just knew I couldn't let you die. And now that you know what I am, what I could become, now I know I was right to trust my instincts. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You think I can't see what she's doing? She's planting doubt because divided enemies are easier to defeat. Don't give her that victory. Rosalie wanted to believe him, but 15 years of betrayal had taught her to question everything, trust no one. Even now, even after everything they'd been through, a small voice whispered that maybe the Eastern Alpha was right. Maybe she was just a useful tool. Maybe the moment she became inconvenient, she'd be eliminated just like her parents. Take her away, Roman ordered, and guards moved to comply. As they hauled the scarred woman to her feet, she called back one last time. When you figure out what the prophecy really means, Silverblood, when you understand what you're truly capable of, you'll remember this conversation. You'll remember that I warned you. Then she was gone, leaving only echoes and doubt. The next 3 days were a blur of activity. The castle wall was repaired with remarkable speed. Iron Peak stone masons were among the best in the territories. The captured conspirators were interrogated, trials arranged, sentences passed. Half were executed for treason, the rest imprisoned or exiled depending on the severity of their crimes. Thornwick sent a delegation, led by a very nervous Marcus Thorne. They brought apologies, reparations, and a formal request that Rosalie return to face the village council. She'd laughed in their faces. You want me to return to the place that poisoned me for 15 years? To face a council that knew what was happening and did nothing? She'd stood before them in the great hall, dressed in borrowed noble clothes, looking every inch the Silverblood Alpha they'd tried to destroy. Tell Elder Morvain that if she wants to speak with me, she can come here, under guard. And she'd better have answers about who paid her to administer those tonics, because if she doesn't cooperate, I'll make sure she spends the rest of her life in a cell. Marcus had stammered something about tradition and village autonomy, But one look from Roman had sent him scurrying back to Thornwick with his tail between his legs. It felt good, reclaiming power, refusing to be a victim anymore. But at night, alone in the guest quarters Roman had provided, doubt crept in. The Eastern Alpha's words echoed, the questions she couldn't answer. What was she becoming? What would happen when the prophecy played out? Would she still be herself, or would the silver blood legacy consume her identity? On the fourth day, Roman came to her room just after dawn. Pack your things. We're leaving for the northern mountains. To see your grandmother? Yes. The sooner we understand your gift, the better prepared we'll be. He handed her a pack. It's a 3-day ride. Hard terrain. Are you up for it? I jumped off a balcony and shifted for the first time in the same night. I think I can handle a horseback ride. His smile was quick and genuine. Fair point. They left within the hour, just the two of them. Roman insisted it was safer. A small group moved faster, attracted less attention. Rosalie suspected he also wanted privacy, wanted to talk without guards or advisors hovering. The northern mountains were brutal and beautiful. Jagged peaks clawed at the sky, valleys thick with ancient pine forests, streams so cold they burned. They rode in companionable silence for the most part, speaking only when necessary. But on the second night, camped beside a frozen lake, Roman finally broached the subject they'd both been avoiding. You've been distant since the Eastern Alpha's interrogation. Rosalie poked at their campfire with a stick. Have I? Don't deflect. Talk to me. About what? About how I'm a prophesied weapon that everyone wants to control or kill? About how I don't know if I can trust anyone, including myself? She threw the stick into the flames. What do you want me to say, Roman? I want you to say what you're really thinking, not what you think I want to hear. She was quiet for so long he probably thought she wouldn't answer. Then, I'm thinking that for 15 years I was nobody, worthless, powerless, and I accepted that. I built my entire identity around being the girl who survived despite having nothing. No family, no gifts, no future, except what I could scrape together with my own hands. And now? Now I'm told I'm special, powerful, important enough that people would destroy villages and orchestrate conspiracies just to eliminate me. And I don't know how to reconcile those two versions of myself. Was I really worthless before? Or was I always this, just suppressed? And if I was always this, then who am I really? Roman moved to sit beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. You're Rosalie Hart, the woman who survived impossible odds, who jumped off a balcony to save someone she barely knew, who shifted for the first time and immediately used that power to protect others instead of seeking revenge. That's who you are. The silver blood gift is part of you, but it doesn't define you. You sound very certain. I am certain. Because I've seen you make choices, Rosalie. You chose to run during the mating hunt instead of submitting. You chose to trust me despite every reason not to. You chose mercy for that Eastern Alpha when you could have killed her. Those choices came from you, not from some ancient bloodline legacy. She leaned her head on his shoulder, the gesture feeling surprisingly natural. What if the prophecy is real? What if I'm supposed to stand between kingdoms and chaos or whatever nonsense the seer predicted? What if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail? Then you fail surrounded by people who believe in you. You fail knowing you tried. You fail on your own terms. His arm came around her shoulders. But I don't think you will fail. I think you're going to be extraordinary. You've known me for less than a week. Sometimes that's all it takes. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire burn down to embers. Rosalie felt something shifting inside her. Not the wolf, something else. The walls around her heart, the ones she'd rebuilt after every betrayal, every abandonment. They were still there, but they had cracks now. Places where Roman's steady presence, his unwavering support, was seeping through. It was terrifying, but also hopeful. On the third day, they reached Alara's sanctuary. It wasn't what Rosalie expected. She'd imagined a grand estate, something befitting the grandmother of an alpha king. Instead, they found a modest stone cottage built into the side of a cliff, nearly invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Smoke rose from a chimney, and herbs hung drying from the eaves. Roman dismounted, then helped Rosalie down. Fair warning, she knew we were coming. She always knows. How? She says she dreams the future. Personally, I think she has scouts posted, but I've learned not to question her methods. They'd barely reached the door when it swung open. The woman who emerged was ancient and vibrant all at once. She stood barely 5 feet tall, her body bent with age, but her eyes, sharp and amber, just like Roman's, burned with fierce intelligence. Her hair was pure white, braided in complex patterns, and she wore simple wool robes that somehow looked regal on her frame. "About time," she said, her voice surprisingly strong. "I've been expecting you for 3 days. What took so long?" "Hello, grandmother. It's good to see you too." "Don't get smart with me, boy." But her eyes softened as they landed on Roman. "You look tired, thinner. Have you been eating?" "Yes, grandmother." "Liar." She turned her attention to Rosalie, and the assessment in her gaze was immediate and thorough. "Silver blood. I thought that line died out. Shows what I know." She circled Rosalie like a predator sizing up prey. "Scrawny, underfed, weak muscles. You've been suppressed." "For 15 years, Rosalie said, refusing to be intimidated. Shadow root, I'd guess. Nasty stuff. Surprised you're not dead." Alara poked Rosalie's arm. "Good bone structure, though. You'll fill out with proper training and food. How's your shift? Painful? Uncontrolled?" "It was intense, but I managed it." "Managed it? Listen to her being modest," Alara cackled. "Roman says you shifted for the first time and immediately took down an Eastern Alpha. That's not managing. That's raw instinct and power." She grabbed Rosalie's face, turning it side to side. "Yes, I see it. Marcus's daughter. You have his eyes, his stubborn jaw. He was always too noble for his own good, hiding in that village. Knew it would get him killed eventually." "You knew my father?" "Knew your whole family. The Silverbloods were old allies before politics, and fear drove them into hiding. Your great-grandmother and I fought side by side in the territory wars." Alara released Rosalie's face and hobbled toward the cottage. "Well, don't just stand there. Come inside. We have a lot of work to do if you're going to survive the Eastern Council's next assault." The cottage interior was warm and cluttered. Every surface held books, scrolls, dried plants, carved stones covered in strange symbols. A fire burned in the hearth, and a pot of something that smelled delicious bubbled over it. Alara ladled soup into bowls and thrust them at her guests. "Eat, both of you. Can't train on empty stomachs." They ate in silence while Alara bustled around gathering materials. Finally, she settled in a chair across from them, fixing Rosalie with that penetrating stare. "So, the Eastern Council wants you dead because of a prophecy. The Northern Territories want you as a weapon because of your bloodline. And you, girl, just want to understand who you are and what you're capable of. Am I understanding correctly?" "More or less," Rosalie agreed. "Then let me tell you about the Silverblood gift and why everyone's so afraid of it." Alara pulled out a leather-bound book, ancient and worn. The 3 founding bloodlines, Silverblood, Ironborn, and Shadowfang, were created in the first generation of shifters. Each had a unique gift. The Ironborn had unbreakable will, perfect for warriors and leaders. The Shadowfang had enhanced senses and stealth, perfect for scouts and assassins. But the Silverblood had something different, something that couldn't be taught or trained. "What?" Rosalie leaned forward. "Connection. The ability to form bonds that transcend normal pack dynamics. To unite disparate groups under a common purpose. To sense the truth in others and draw out their best qualities." Alara's eyes gleamed. The last Silverblood Alpha used that gift to unite every pack in the territories. She ended decades of war, created lasting peace, but she also became so powerful that she threatened the existing power structures. The council feared her, so they killed her, Rosalie guessed, divided her, broke her bonds one by one, isolated her until she had nothing left. She died alone and broken, and her enemies made sure everyone knew what happened to Silverbloods who got too ambitious. Alara closed the book. "That's why they fear you, not because you're strong, because you could inspire others to be strong. You could change the entire power structure of the territories just by existing and forming genuine connections." "But I don't know how to do any of that." "You've already started. You bonded with Roman in less than a week. You inspired loyalty in Thane and the castle guards. You earned the grudging respect of an Eastern Alpha who came to kill you."
Alara smiled. The gift isn't something you turn on and off. It's who you are. The question is whether you'll learn to use it deliberately or let it happen randomly. Roman had been quiet, listening. Now he spoke. The prophecy said she'd stand between kingdoms and chaos. What does that actually mean? It means choice, boy. Pay attention, Alara huffed.
The territories are fracturing. Eastern Council wants expansion. Western Pax want isolation. Southern provinces want independence. Northern territories, your territories, want stability. All those competing interests are heading toward war. And when that war comes, Rosalie will have to choose which side she supports. Her choice, her bonds, her connections, they'll determine which faction wins. That's too much pressure for one person, Rosalie protested. Of course it is. That's why prophecies are terrible things. They put impossible weight on individuals who didn't ask for it.
Alara reached over and patted Rosalie's hand with surprising gentleness. But here's what the prophecy believers always forget. You get to choose how you stand between kingdoms and chaos. You don't have to pick a side and destroy the others. You could unite them, forge new alliances, create something better than what exists now. Or I could fail spectacularly and make everything worse. Also possible, but I bet on success. Alara stood, moving to a chest in the corner. She pulled out a wrapped bundle and brought it to Rosalie. This was your great-grandmother's. She'd want you to have it. Rosalie unwrapped the bundle with trembling hands. Inside was a silver pendant on a leather cord, a wolf's head with amber eyes, intricately carved, beautiful and fierce. It's tradition, Alara explained. Each silver blood alpha had one. It marks you as heir to the legacy. Wear it proudly. Rosalie fastened the pendant around her neck. It settled against her chest, warm and right, like it had always belonged there. Now then, Alara clapped her hands. Training begins tomorrow at dawn. We have 6 months to turn you from a half-trained pup into a force the Eastern Council will regret challenging. Roman, you'll assist. I need someone for her to practice combat against, and you're durable enough to handle it. I'm not sure I should be fighting her in training. Nonsense. She needs to learn to fight alphas, and you're the strongest one available. Don't worry, I'll make sure she doesn't kill you. Probably. Alara's grin was slightly unhinged. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start building the weapon everyone's afraid of. Except this weapon chooses her own targets. That night, Rosalie lay in the small guest room Alara had prepared, staring at the ceiling. The silver pendant rested against her heart, a tangible connection to a family she'd never known. Outside, she could hear Roman and Alara talking in low voices, the old woman probably giving him instructions for the training ahead. She touched the pendant, feeling its warmth. For the first time since the mating hunt, she felt something like peace. Not safety. She'd probably never feel truly safe again. But purpose. Direction. She was done being hunted, done being controlled, done being afraid. Tomorrow, she'd start becoming the thing her enemies feared most. A silverblood, who knew exactly what she was capable of. The training began at dawn, just as Alara promised, and it was brutal. The silverblood gift is mental and emotional, yes, but it manifests through physical prowess, Alara explained while Rosalie gasped for breath after her 20th lap around the clearing. You can't bond with others if you're too weak to fight beside them. You can't inspire if you can't endure. So we build your body first. Days blurred together in a haze of physical punishment, running until her legs screamed. Combat drills with Roman until she could barely lift her arms, shifting practice until the transformation became second nature instead of a desperate emergency measure. Alara pushed her past every limit, then demanded she find new ones. But it wasn't just physical training. Alara also taught her about pack dynamics, territorial law, the intricate web of alliances and grudges that defined the shifter world. She learned which families held power, which had fallen from grace, which were hungry for advancement. She learned to read people, to sense their motivations, to identify potential allies and hidden enemies. The silver blood gift is wasted if you don't understand the game being played, Alara lectured. Connection without strategy is just sentiment. You need both. 2 months into training, everything changed. Rosalie was sparring with Roman in the clearing when she felt it, a pull, sudden and intense, towards something she couldn't name. Her wolf surged forward, alert and interested. Stop, she said, holding up a hand. Roman lowered his guard immediately. What is it? I don't know. Something's coming. Someone. She turned toward the forest path, and her instinct screamed friend, not foe. They're not hostile, they're seeking? Moments later, a young woman emerged from the trees. She couldn't have been more than 19, with wild red hair and nervous energy that practically vibrated off her skin. She saw Rosalie and dropped to her knees. Silver blood, she breathed. I felt you, your call. I've been traveling for 3 weeks to find you. Rosalie exchanged a glance with Roman, then approached cautiously. I didn't call anyone. You did. Maybe not consciously, but your gift. It reaches out to those who are lost, who are seeking purpose. I felt it in my dreams. A silver wolf standing strong, offering sanctuary. The girl looked up and Rosalie saw desperation in her eyes. My pack was destroyed by the Eastern Council 6 months ago. I've been running ever since. I have nowhere to go, no one to turn to. But I felt your presence, and I knew. I knew you'd understand. This was it, Rosalie realized. The silver blood gift manifesting. She'd unconsciously reached out, and this girl had answered. She offered her hand. What's your name? Kira. Kira Redfern. Well, Kira Redfern, welcome to the strangest training camp in the Northern Territories. Rosalie helped her to her feet. You're safe here, and if you're willing to fight for what we're building, you have a place. Over the next 4 months, 8 more shifters arrived. All of them had felt Rosalie's call. All of them were refugees from the Eastern Council's expansion, survivors of attacks and purges. None of them had anywhere else to go. Rosalie bonded with each one, learned their stories, earned their loyalty. Without meaning to, without trying, she was building exactly what Alara had described, connections that transcended normal pack dynamics. She was creating something new. You're forming your own pack, Roman observed one evening as they watched Kira and the others train together in the clearing. I didn't mean to. I know. That's what makes it powerful. He smiled, and there was pride in it. The Eastern Council is afraid of you becoming a weapon. Instead, you're becoming a leader. That's infinitely more dangerous to them. Alara emerged from the cottage, leaning heavily on her walking stick. 6 months. Time's up. You're as ready as you're going to be. Ready for what? For this. She handed Rosalie a sealed letter. Arrived this morning by courier. It's from the Eastern Council. They're proposing a meeting, a negotiation to end hostilities. Rosalie broke the seal, scanning the contents. They want to meet in neutral territory, discuss terms for peace. They're offering to recognize my claim to the Silver Blood legacy in exchange for... She looked up, disbelief in her eyes. In exchange for me pledging neutrality, promising never to interfere in territorial politics. It's a trap, Roman said immediately. Obviously, but it's also an opportunity. Rosalie read the letter again, her strategic mind, honed by months of Alara's teaching, already working through possibilities. They're afraid. If they weren't, they wouldn't negotiate. They'd just keep sending assassins. So what do you do? Rosalie looked at the small pack she'd built, the 9 loyal souls who'd pledged themselves to her cause. She looked at Roman, who'd stood beside her through everything. She looked at Alara, who'd given her the tools to claim her heritage. Then she smiled, fierce and determined. I go to their meeting, and I show them exactly why they should be afraid. Roman's hand shot out, gripping Rosalie's arm. You're not seriously considering walking into an Eastern Council trap. I'm not walking into anything. I'm making a strategic choice. Rosalie pulled free, her eyes never leaving the letter. They're offering negotiation because they're uncertain. That uncertainty is the crack we need. Or it's bait designed to eliminate you when you're most vulnerable. Roman's voice carried the alpha command that usually made others submit, but Rosalie had grown beyond such automatic obedience. Think about what you're risking. Everything we've built, everyone who's pledged loyalty to you, is exactly why I need to do this. She finally looked up, meeting his eyes with unwavering determination. These people came to me for protection, for hope. If I hide in the mountains forever, I'm not protecting them. I'm just postponing the inevitable. The Eastern Council will keep expanding, keep destroying packs, keep hunting anyone who threatens their power. This meeting, trap or not, is our chance to change the paradigm. Alara had been watching the exchange with sharp interest. Now she cackled, slapping her knee. There it is, the silver blood fire. I was wondering when you'd stop asking permission and start making declarations. Grandmother, you can't possibly think this is a good idea. I think it's a terrible idea, dangerous, reckless, probably going to get her killed. Alara's grin was fierce. Which is exactly why it might work. The Eastern Council expects a weapon or a victim. They're not prepared for a leader who walks into their territory and demands they negotiate on her terms. Kira stepped forward from where she'd been listening with the others. If you're going, we're going with you. All of us. No. Rosalie's voice was firm. This isn't a show of force. If I bring a pack, it looks like I'm afraid, like I need protection. You do need protection, Roman ground out. You're powerful, Rosalie, but you're not invincible. The Eastern Council has resources, numbers, centuries of tactical experience, and I have something they don't, something they can't plan for. She touched the silver pendant at her throat. I have the truth. I know what they're really afraid of, and it's not my combat skills or my wolf. They're afraid that I'll do exactly what I'm planning to do, unite the fractured packs, give refugees hope, create an alternative to their authoritarian control. They want me to pledge neutrality because an active silver blood rebuilding the old alliances is their worst nightmare. So you're going to walk into their stronghold and what? Give them more reason to kill you? No, I'm going to offer them a choice. Rosalie's mind was racing now, the strategy crystallizing. Peace on terms that benefit everyone, or war they can't win because I'll have every displaced pack in the territories fighting under one banner. Make them understand that killing me creates a martyr and a unified enemy. Let them live creates an ally who might keep the other bloodlines from tearing the territories apart. Roman stared at her for a long moment, and she watched the conflict play across his face. Fear warring with respect. Protectiveness battling with recognition that she'd outgrown needing constant protection. You've changed, he said quietly. 6 months ago, you were running from a mating hunt, convinced you were powerless. 6 months ago, I was poisoned and lied to and told I was worthless. Her voice softened. You helped me see the truth. Now, I need to show everyone else. Then I'm coming with you. Roman, not as protection, as witness, as the Alpha King affirming that you speak for the Northern Territories. His expression was steel. They're going to try to kill you, Rosalie. I won't let them do it unchallenged. Alara stood, her ancient joints cracking. If you're both determined to walk into the dragon's den, at least do it smart. The meeting is in 3 days at Greystone Summit, neutral territory, but closer to eastern lands than ours. You'll need to arrive early, scout the location, identify escape routes. And contingencies, Kira added. If things go wrong, you lead the pack to safety, Rosalie told her. That's an order. No heroic rescue attempts. You survive, you build on what we've started, you make sure the silver blood legacy doesn't die with me. Kira's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Understood. The next 3 days were a controlled frenzy of preparation. Roman sent riders to Iron Peak, summoning Thane and a small honor guard, enough to look official, not enough to appear threatening. Alara coached Rosalie on negotiation tactics, on reading the subtle tells that would reveal the Council's true intentions. The pack drilled combat scenarios, preparing for the possibility that their leader might not return. On the morning of departure, Rosalie stood before the small pack she'd built, wearing clothes that Alara had commissioned, not armor, but reinforced leather that could withstand a fight while looking diplomatic. The silver pendant gleamed at her throat, impossible to miss. I know you're afraid, she told them. I'm afraid too. But fear is a tool, not a prison. We use it to stay sharp, stay careful, but we don't let it control us. She met each person's eyes in turn. Whatever happens at Greystone Summit, you've already proven something crucial. That shifters from different packs, different backgrounds, different bloodlines can unite under a common purpose. That's what the Eastern Council fears most. That's what we're protecting. What we're building, Kira corrected. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. Rosalie smiled. Then let's make sure there's a future to build in. The journey to Greystone Summit took 2 days of hard riding. Roman, Rosalie, Thane, and 4 guards moved swiftly through increasingly hostile territory. They passed burned-out villages, abandoned packlands, signs of the Eastern Council's aggressive expansion. Each piece of evidence hardened Rosalie's resolve.
Greystone Summit was aptly named, a flat expanse of rock and sparse grass atop a mountain, surrounded by sheer cliffs on three sides. Defensible for the occupants, death trap for anyone trying to escape. Roman's tactical eye immediately caught the danger. They chose this location deliberately. Limited escape routes, high ground advantage if they position archers, easy to surround. He surveyed the terrain with professional assessment. If this goes bad, it won't.
Rosalie dismounted, feeling the stone beneath her feet. Or it will, but not in the way they expect.
The Eastern Council delegation arrived at sunset, and they came with a show of force designed to intimidate. 20 warriors in formation, led by 5 council members in ceremonial robes. And at the center, flanked by guards, stood Veyron. His arm had healed, shifter metabolism, but his eyes held undiluted hatred when they landed on Rosalie.
Veyron walks free? Roman's voice was deadly quiet. You harbor a traitor and expect good faith negotiation? The lead council member, a woman whose nameplate identified her as Councillor Ashwin, smiled coldly. Veyron is under Eastern protection now. His testimony about your instability, Alpha King, has been quite valuable, as has his intelligence about the Silverblood. Intelligence he stole, Rosalie said flatly, including my family's personal journals. I want them returned.
They're historical documents. The Council has claimed them for archival purposes. Ashwin's tone suggested the matter was closed. Now, shall we discuss why we're actually here? Your pledge of neutrality in exchange for recognition of your bloodline claim. No. The single word hung in the cold mountain air. Ashwin's eyebrows rose. No? I didn't come here to pledge neutrality. I came to offer you an alternative to the war you're about to start. Rosalie stepped forward, conscious of every warrior's attention locked on her. You've been expanding aggressively for 5 years, destroying packs, absorbing territories, eliminating anyone who opposes you. You think you're building an empire. You're actually creating a powder keg. Bold words from someone standing in the middle of our warriors. Truth doesn't require safety to be spoken, Rosalie's voice carried across the summit. The Western packs are arming. The southern provinces are forming alliances. The northern territories under Roman's leadership are fortifying their borders. You're surrounded by enemies, and you created every single one of them through your policies of expansion and elimination. Which is precisely why we need to eliminate you. Ashwin's mask of diplomacy cracked slightly. A Silverblood forming connections, building alliances, uniting the fractured packs. You're the spark that could ignite unified resistance. Much simpler to snuff out the spark than fight the fire. Except you can't snuff me out without proving every accusation I just made. Kill me here, in supposed peace negotiations, and you confirm to every watching pack that you can't be trusted, that you'll betray any treaty, break any promise, murder anyone who threatens your power. Rosalie spread her hands. So go ahead. Order your warriors to attack. Make me a martyr. Give the territories their rallying cry. The warriors shifted uneasily. They weren't all mindless soldiers, Rosalie realized. Some had conscience enough to recognize the political disaster their council was creating. Veyron stepped forward, his voice dripping venom. She's manipulating you. This is exactly what the Silverblood gift does. Plants doubt, creates division. Don't listen to her words. Remember the prophecy. Remember what she could become if left unchecked. A leader? Rosalie turned her attention fully to Veyron. Someone who inspires loyalty instead of demanding it through fear? Someone who builds instead of destroys? Yes, I remember the prophecy. She will stand between kingdoms and chaos, and her choice will determine the fate of all packs. My choice, Veyron. Not yours, not the council's. Mine. And what is your choice? Ashwin demanded. Peace. Real peace, not the subjugation you call stability. I'm offering to help mediate disputes between territories. To use my gift, the connections I can form, to rebuild trust between packs, to create a council that actually represents all territories, not just Eastern interests. Rosalie's voice gained strength. Or you can choose war, in which case I'll stand with every pack you've victimized, every refugee you've created, every wolf whose home you've destroyed. And we will fight you with everything we have. Silence fell across the summit. Counselor Ashwin studied Rosalie with new calculation. You're offering to be neutral arbiter while simultaneously threatening war. That's contradictory. No, it's offering you a choice between two futures. In one, I'm your ally in maintaining stability. In the other, I'm your most dangerous enemy. You decide which you prefer. The council doesn't negotiate with, yes, you do. Roman's voice cut through, carrying the authority of his position. You negotiated with the Western Pax to establish trade routes. You negotiated with the southern provinces on border disputes. You negotiate when it benefits you. Rosalie is offering terms that benefit everyone, unless you're admitting your only interest is dominance, not stability. Ashwin's expression hardened. And if we reject both options, if we simply eliminate the threat here and now, then you'll have to kill an alpha king alongside her, Roman said quietly, and explain to every pack in the territories why you murdered a king during peace talks. Good luck maintaining your expansion when the entire northern territories declare war in response. You'd go to war over her? Viron spat. A wolfless nobody who stumbled into power she doesn't understand? I'd go to war to defend a leader who's shown more integrity in 6 months than your council has in 6 years. Roman moved to stand beside Rosalie. But more than that, I'd go to war because she's right. You're creating enemies faster than you can eliminate them. The question isn't whether your expansion will collapse. It's whether it collapses in controlled negotiation or bloody conflict. Another council member spoke for the first time, an older man whose scars suggested extensive combat experience. The Silver Blood speaks sense, Ashwin. Our intelligence reports confirm resistance is organizing, multiple packs coordinating attacks on our supply lines. If this continues, we crush them, Ashwin snapped. We don't bow to threats from a girl who shifted for the first time 6 months ago. You're not bowing, you're adapting. Rosalie kept her voice reasonable, diplomatic, even as she sensed the council fracturing. The world is changing. The old ways, expansion through force, power through intimidation, they're failing. I'm offering you a chance to change with it, to be remembered as the council that chose evolution over extinction. Viron laughed, harsh and bitter. She's selling you fantasy. The Silver Blood gift isn't peace, it's chaos dressed up as unity. Her great-grandmother united the packs, yes, and then used that unity to crown herself empress, to declare herself above all councils, all laws. That's what this one will do too, given time. Is that what you're afraid of? Rosalie turned to face him fully. That I'll become what you tried to make me. A weapon, a tool, a means to power? The difference between me and my great-grandmother is that I don't want to rule. I want to survive. And I've learned that the only way to survive in this world is to make sure everyone else can survive too. Naive, Viron said. Practical, Rosalie corrected. Empires fall, dictatorships crumble. But communities, true communities built on mutual benefit, they endure. I'm offering to help build the latter. You're clinging to the former. She addressed the full council now. Which future do you want? Because the choice you make today determines everything that follows. Ashwin opened her mouth to respond, but movement at the edge of the summit interrupted her. Kira emerged from behind a boulder, followed by the rest of Rosalie's pack. They disobeyed orders, followed at a distance, and now stood at the cliff's edge, 9 wolves against 20 Eastern warriors, but their presence shifted the entire dynamic. Sorry, Kira called out, not sounding sorry at all. We decided martyrdom wasn't the lesson you should be teaching us. Rosalie wanted to be angry, but she felt nothing but fierce pride. They'd chosen to stand with her despite the risk. That was the Silver Blood gift in action, not manipulation, but inspiration. The scarred council member who'd spoken earlier actually smiled. The girl builds loyalty. When was the last time any of our warriors would have disobeyed orders to protect us? That's not loyalty, Ashwin said. That's foolishness. Call it what you want, the scarred man replied. I call it the future. Counselor Ashwin, I vote to accept the Silver Blood's proposal. Mediated negotiations, territorial council, peace terms that benefit all parties. Counselor Greaves, you can't be serious. I'm deadly serious. We've lost 300 warriors in the past year to resistance attacks. Our expansion has stalled. Our coffers are depleted from constant military operations. The Silver Blood offers an alternative that doesn't involve continued bloodshed. I'd be a fool to reject it out of pride.
A third council member raised her hand. I also vote to accept. Ashwin's face went purple with rage. This is treason. The council's decision must be unanimous. Actually, Greaves said mildly, the charter requires only majority vote for peace negotiations. You're outvoted, Ashwin. Veyron, tell them what shall become if we allow this. But Veyron was backing away, his eyes fixed on something over Rosalie's shoulder.
She turned to see what had caught his attention. Alara stood at the opposite edge of the summit, leaning on her walking stick, flanked by a dozen wolves Rosalie didn't recognize. Old wolves, grizzled and scarred, radiating the kind of power that came from surviving decades of territorial conflicts.
Hello, Eastern Council, Alara called out cheerfully. Did you really think you could hold a summit about the Silverblood legacy without inviting those of us who actually remember it? Elder Ashcroft, Greaves said, respect clear in his tone. We weren't aware you'd left your sanctuary. I leave when the situation demands it, and watching children play at politics while ignoring history definitely demands it. Alara hobbled forward, and her escort moved with her, not guarding her, Rosalie realized, but following her lead.
I fought beside Marcus Silverblood's grandmother. I witnessed the rise and fall of the last Silverblood Empress, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that this girl is nothing like her predecessor.
How can you be sure? Ashwin demanded. Because I've been training her for 6 months, you fool. Because I've seen her turn away from power repeatedly. Because when 9 strangers pledged loyalty to her, her first concern was their safety, not how to use them as weapons. Alara's eyes swept the council. The last Silverblood Empress was consumed by ambition. This one is driven by survival. There's a crucial difference. Elder Ashcroft's word carries weight, the third council member said quietly. If she vouches for the Silverblood's intentions, I vouch for nothing except her character, Alara interrupted. Whether she succeeds or fails in this mediation business is up to her. But I'll guarantee that she's not secretly plotting to crown herself ruler of the territories. She just wants to stop getting assassins sent after her, and frankly, I sympathize. Despite the tension, several people laughed. The sound seemed to break something in Ashwin's rigid control. Fine. You want negotiation? We'll negotiate. But I want terms in writing. I want guarantees. And I want those journals Veyron brought us included in the records. The Silverblood's family history belongs to all territories, not just her. Agreed, Rosalie said immediately. Full transparency. Everything my parents wrote, everything about the Silverblood legacy, it becomes public record. No more secrets. No more prophecies used to justify murder. And in exchange? In exchange, you stop the expansion. You return autonomy to pacts you've absorbed in the past 5 years. And you agree to a territorial council, one representative from each major pact, including Northern, Southern, and Western territories. We'll establish laws that protect all pacts, not just Eastern interests. That's asking us to dismantle everything we've built, Ashwin said. No, it's asking you to transform what you've built into something sustainable. Rosalie held the counselor's gaze. Empires built on conquest always fall, but alliances built on mutual benefit can last generations. Which legacy do you want to leave? Ashwin was silent for a long moment. Then grudgingly, we'll need time to draft formal terms, weeks, possibly months of negotiation. I have time, Rosalie said. For the first time in my life, I have time. No running, no hiding, just building something better. Greaves stepped forward, extending his hand to Rosalie. Then let's build it, Silverblood, though I reserve the right to regret this decision later. She shook his hand, feeling the connection form, not the deep bond she shared with her pack, but something solid nonetheless. An alliance. A beginning. One by one, the other council members came forward. Even Ashwin eventually approached, though her handshake was brief and her expression suggested she was agreeing under protest. Only Veyron remained apart, his face twisted with impotent fury. This isn't over, he said, voice shaking. You think you've won, but you've just delayed the inevitable. The prophecy will still come true. The Silverblood will still bring chaos. The prophecy already came true, Alara interrupted. She stood between kingdoms and chaos, and she chose peace. The fact that you're too blind to see it is your problem, not hers. Someone arrest this man, Roman ordered, and Thane moved forward with grim satisfaction. Veyron Ashford, you're charged with treason against the Northern Territories.
conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other crimes I'll detail later. You're going back to Iron Peak to stand trial. The Eastern Council won't allow... Veyron started. The Eastern Council just agreed to return to rule of law, Greaves said, which means extraditing accused criminals to face justice in their home territories. Sorry, Veyron. You're on your own. As Thane hauled Veyron away in chains, the man's protests echoing across the summit, Rosalie felt something shift inside her. Not the wolf. She was calm, satisfied. Something deeper. The weight of 15 years of fear and suppression finally, truly lifting. She looked at the gathered wolves, Eastern Council, her pack, Ilara's ancient companions, Roman's guards, and saw not threats or tools, but potential. Potential for alliance, for understanding, for something better than the cycle of violence and betrayal that had defined her life. We should establish a timeline for the first formal council meeting, she said, turning back to business, and agree on neutral territory for negotiations. Greystone Summit is dramatic, but not practical for extended discussions. Greaves smiled. Already thinking like a politician, there might be hope for us yet. The summit ended not with bloodshed, but with scheduling discussions. Not with victory or defeat, but with tentative agreement that maybe, just maybe, there was a better way forward. As the Eastern delegation departed, Kira approached Rosalie with a sheepish expression. So, about disobeying your direct orders. Don't apologize. You made the right call. Rosalie pulled her into a brief embrace. Though next time, maybe give me some warning before staging a dramatic rescue that I don't actually need. Where's the drama in that? Roman joined them, and Rosalie saw the mixture of relief and pride in his expression. You did it. You walked into a trap and turned it into a negotiation. We did it, she corrected. I wouldn't have survived without backup, without people willing to stand with me even when it was terrifying. That's the gift, Ilara said, approaching with her escort. Not power over others. Power through others. Connection that makes everyone stronger. She studied Rosalie with satisfaction. Your great-grandmother would be proud, or possibly horrified that you're using the silver blood legacy for peace instead of conquest. Either way, you've carved your own path. What happens now? Rosalie asked. Real politics is messier than mountain training. Negotiations will take months, maybe years. People will resist change. Some will try to sabotage the process. Then you'll handle it, Ilara said simply. You'll make mistakes. You'll have setbacks. But you'll keep building, keep connecting, keep choosing the harder, right over the easier wrong. That's what it means to be Silverblood. Rosalie looked out over the summit, at the territories spreading below in all directions. Somewhere down there, packs were fighting, refugees were fleeing, wolves were dying in conflicts that didn't need to happen. But also somewhere down there, people were hoping, believing that maybe change was possible. She felt Roman's hand find hers steady and warm. Together? He asked quietly. Together, she agreed. 3 months later, the first official territorial council convened in a newly constructed hall built specifically for the purpose. Neutral ground, equal representation, transparent proceedings. 32 packs sent delegates. The discussions were heated, often contentious. Twice, negotiations nearly collapsed entirely. But they didn't collapse, because Rosalie was there, using her gift not to force agreement, but to find common ground, to help packs see each other's perspectives, to remind everyone that they were stronger united than divided. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was working. On the evening of the council's 3-month anniversary, Rosalie stood on a balcony overlooking the grounds where delegates from across the territories mingled, argued, and occasionally laughed together. Her pack, grown to 23 members now, had integrated into various roles within the council structure. Kira served as her chief aide. Others provided security, coordination, administrative support. Roman joined her on the balcony, carrying 2 cups of wine. Thane sent word from Iron Peak. Veyron's trial concluded. Guilty on all counts, sentenced to life imprisonment in the deepest cell we have. He'll die there, Rosalie said quietly. Yes, but he'll die knowing he failed. Knowing that everything he tried to prevent came to pass anyway. Roman handed her a cup. Your parents' journals are being prepared for public archive. You'll have access first, of course. Alara thinks there might be training techniques in there, information about the Silverblood gift that was lost over the generations. I'm almost afraid to read them, Rosalie admitted. What if I'm nothing like they hoped I'd be? Then you're exactly who you chose to become, and that's better. Roman's arm settled around her shoulders. You know what I realized today? 6 months ago, you were running through a forest with nothing but a knife and a prayer. Now you're reshaping territorial politics and building alliances that will last generations. That's not the prophecy. That's you. The prophecy helped, gave me leverage with the Eastern Council. The prophecy gave you an opening. You're the one who walked through it. He turned her to face him. Stop crediting ancient seers for your accomplishments, Rosalie. You earned every bit of this. She looked up at him, this alpha king who'd saved her life, and then trusted her to save herself. Who'd stood beside her through assassination attempts and political negotiations and her own moments of crippling doubt. Who saw her not as a weapon or a tool, but as herself. I love you, she said, the words feeling both new and inevitable. Roman's eyes widened slightly, then warmed with an emotion so intense it took her breath away. I've loved you since you jumped off that balcony. Possibly since you told me to trust that you weren't broken. Definitely since you bit an Eastern Alpha and then offered her mercy. That's a very specific timeline. I'm a very specific person. He kissed her then, gentle and fierce and full of promise. When they broke apart, Rosalie rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. Really seeing me. Not the wolfless orphan, not the silver-blood weapon. Just me. Always, Roman promised. For as long as you'll have me. That's going to be a very long time. Fair warning. I'm counting on it. Below them, the council delegates continued their work. Above them, stars emerged in the darkening sky, and for the first time in 15 years, Rosalie Hart felt something she'd almost forgotten was possible. Hope. Not for survival, but for a future worth living. A future she'd fought for, built with her own hands and the strength of the connection she'd forged. She was Silverblood. She was survivor. She was leader. But most importantly, she was free. And in the territory she'd helped unite, that freedom was spreading, pack by pack, wolf by wolf, connection by connection. The mating hunt felt like a lifetime ago. The girl who'd run into Aldenmore Forest barely recognizable in the woman who now stood at the center of territorial transformation. But that girl's survival, her refusal to break, her stubborn insistence on her own worth even when the world denied it, that was the foundation everything else was built on. She'd been hunted, she'd been poisoned, she'd been told she was worthless, and she'd proven every single one of them wrong. Not through prophecy or ancient bloodline magic, though those helped, but through choice. Through the decision, made over and over again in 1,000 small moments, to keep fighting, to keep building, to keep believing that she deserved better than what the world offered. That was the real Silverblood legacy. Not power over others, but power to choose, to transform pain into purpose, to turn survival into sanctuary. As the moon rose over the council grounds, painting everything in silver light, Rosalie smiled. The hunt was over, the building had just begun, and she was ready.